Chapter 1375, Everyone Becomes a Saint King, 1. Biyao smiled apologetically. Sister Bai Lian, grandfather, please forgive me for keeping this a secret, because this matter is just far too shocking. Even when I personally learned this from my master, I felt like it was all just a tale. It was difficult for me to accept, which was why I didn't tell you all as soon as I learned of Xiao Jin's identity. Jian Chen could not help but think of the metallic spirit origin energy hidden in the depths of the tungsten alloy mine with Yu Yu's explanation. The sword spirits had discovered its existence long ago, but it had not matured back then, so he left it hidden deep within the tough tungsten alloy. Even the Grand Elder of Mercenary City back then, Tian Jian, was unable to penetrate that deep, so he could only leave it be in the end. He had never thought that the metallic spirit would have fully matured before he returned to the city and would have been able to endure the heavenly tribulations to take on a human form. It was extremely powerful. Jian Chen's gaze toward Xiao Jin became rather odd after learning Xiao Jin's identity. He could obviously tell that Xiao Jin's naivety was like a newly born infant. He was a harmless-looking boy but an origin realm expert at the same time, which Jian Chen found rather difficult to accept. He had learned from the sword spirits just how impressive the metallic spirit was and its unlimited future potential. However, he was just taken by disbelief to think that it would be an origin realm expert as soon as it came into existence. After all, there were only 5 experts of the origin realm even in ancient times. Ignoring the one from the Ice Goddess Hall, there were the 4 champions of the humans, magical beasts, sea race, and 100 races. This was more than enough to see just how rare they were. Even right now, there were only 2 origin realm experts on the Tian Yuan continent at most. However, what made Jian Chen even more confused was why Xiao Jin would appear in Flame City after assuming a human form and why he felt that Xiao Jin's gaze toward him was filled with reliance. He did not shrug off Bai Lian and the others either, which he could not understand no matter how he thought about it. The Tian Yuan continent is currently facing a disaster. The world of Forsaken Saints is about to invade our world. We're in desperate need of a powerful force in this crucial period of time. Xiao Jin's sudden appearance just holds far too great of a significance. However, he seems to be lacking knowledge in many areas. We need to teach him a lot over the next few days, especially techniques regarding battle, said Jian Chen. The topic of conversation soon shifted away from Xiao Jin. Brother Ming Dong is currently cultivating in a secret room we've specially prepared for him in Flame City. He's already become a saint ruler, and we don't know what level he's reached now. However, Brother Ming Dong's talent is much greater than grandfather's talent. His rate of cultivation has even made grandfather speechless. Jian Chen expanded his soul and swept the surroundings. Indeed, he found Ming Dong in seclusion 1,000 meters underground. He really did improve at an extremely great rate, having reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler already. Jian Chen then looked toward the silent Dugu Feng at the table. Dugu Feng was among his earliest group of followers. He had met him with Ming Dong when they had competed in the gathering of mercenaries in Mercenary City. Dugu Feng was not as powerful as Ming Dong back then in the competition, but the difference between the two had not been particularly great. Yet now, Ming Dong had already become an 8th heavenly layer saint ruler while Dugu Feng remained a heaven saint master. Dugu Feng's not banned. He's remained as the disciplinary elder of Flame City for a very long time, committing meritorious services for the Flame mercenaries. He's even pushed back his own cultivation. It would have been impossible for the mercenaries to be as stable as it is right now without Dugu Feng, Bai Hai said from one side. The gaze he used on Dugu Feng was filled with kindness. Yeah, I don't want Dugu Feng to busy himself because of the Flame mercenaries and end up not cultivating at all. I've been trying to convince Dugu Feng to return back to the clan over the past few days, but he will return again soon, Bai Lian added as well. Dugu Feng had indeed made drastic contributions to the expansion of the Flame mercenaries. My talent is nowhere near as great as Ming Dong's talent, so it's impossible for me to catch up to him no matter how I cultivate. Since that's the case, I did some things that were more meaningful, Dugu Feng nonchalantly replied. He seemed to never smile with his steadfast face. Dugu Feng, you don't need to worry about talent. I have my methods of completely altering your talent and allowing you to become a saint king in the shortest amount of time possible, even ensuring that you'll become a saint emperor in the future, Jian Chen solemnly said to De Gufeng. He did not have many friends he truly trusted, and De Gufeng happened to be one of them. Afterward, Jian Chen asked the others about Little Fatty and the others. Little Fatty, Signorin, Yunzheng, and Wang Yifeng have not returned since they set off to train themselves on the continent. We only receive some news from them from time to time, but it seems that they've been well over the past few years, said Bai Lian. Liener, command the Flame Mercenaries to search the continent for them and get them to return to Flame City as soon as possible, ordered Jian Chen. The disaster was imminent. He needed to use the resources on hand to increase their strength. 3 days later, Bai Lian, Yu Yu, De Gufeng, Bai Hai, Huang Luan, and Ming Dong were all brought to the mountain range where the tungsten alloy mine used to be by Jian Chen. However, the vast mountain range had become ordinary. It was no longer as famous as before. Ever since the metallic spirit had absorbed all the metallic essence, the tough tungsten alloy had all been reduced to simple rock. Jian Chen, why have you brought us here? Ming Dong asked in confusion as he looked around. He had just emerged from seclusion. This place is open enough. It's a good place. I plan on making you all break through here, said Jian Chen. Get us all to break through? Jian Chen, have you obtained some extremely impressive heavenly resources? Ming Dong's eyes lit up and his interest was immediately piqued. Jian Chen nodded slightly. Yes, I've indeed obtained some heavenly resources. They are enough to make your strength skyrocket. Ming Dong, you're already an 8th heavenly layer saint ruler and your talent is impressive. It's possible for you to break through to Saint King with this opportunity or directly become a saint emperor. What? Ming Dong was greatly shocked. He stared at Jian Chen in disbelief. Even Yu Yu, Huan Luan, Bai Hai, and the others were the same. Jian Chen no longer wasted any time. He first used the blood of the Hall Master from the Serpent God Hall to strengthen their bodies before using the holy water of the Spirit Sea to alter their constitution and talent. In the end, he removed some heaven-connecting flowers, enough violent cloud peaches, and a few comprehension tea leaves from the artifact space to increase their strength. Jian Chen did not behave stingily at all. The immortal peaches could only be consumed once in 100 years, so in order to maximize their increases in strength, he could no longer bother with wasting anything. He brought out 5th grade violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves and used the best spring water he had on hand to make tea. Chapter 1376, Everyone Becomes a Saint King. 2. Ming Dong, Bai Hai, and Huang Luan were all saint rulers and on the higher end of the spectrum of cultivation. As a result, they refined the blood and holy water faster than everyone else, rousing the soonest. Without long, Yu Yu refined the blood and holy water since she had only recently reached Saint Ruler. Their bodies had strengthened greatly under the refinement of the Hall Master's blood, and even their talent and souls had undergone a metamorphosis from the holy water of the Spirit Sea. Jian Chen, what is this blood? It actually contains such powerful energy. With my current strength, just refining a fist-sized amount of it would give me enough trouble, Ming Dong said in surprise. He then looked at the heaven-connecting flowers in the surroundings and the recently made comprehension tea that gave off a thick fragrance. He felt deeply shocked when he saw the treasures Jian Chen was able to pull out. I really do wonder what dangerous place Jian Chen has gone to obtain so many impressive heavenly resources over the years I spent in seclusion, Ming Dong thought to himself. He did not recognize the flowers or the tea, but he could determine they were extraordinary just from their fragrance. This is the blood of a saint emperor. I heavily injured a saint emperor recently in the sea realm and managed to collect some of his blood during the process. The saint emperor's original form is a serpent dragon from the depths of the ocean. His blood is very useful to you, explained Jian Chen before delivering a 5th grade violet cloud peach and a cup of tea to the 3 of them. He said, this is a violet cloud peach. It can increase your cultivation by 2,500 years, while this comprehension tea can assist you while you comprehend the mysteries of the world. Consume them together. Ming Dong was shocked when he heard about the Saint Emperor's blood, but when he heard about the almost heaven-defying effects of the peach and tea, he immediately became stupefied. Even Biyao, Huang Yuan, and Yu Yu felt the same way. They had never even seen or heard of something so wondrous. A single peach could increase their cultivation by 2.5 millennia, while a cup of tea could increase their comprehension of the mysteries of the world. Ming Dong, Biyao, Huang Yuan, and Yu Yu drank the tea with the peach just as Jian Shen had told them to in a rather numb fashion. The peach transformed into tremendous, surging energy that gushed through their bodies as soon as it reached their stomachs, causing them to devote all they had into refining the energy. Jian Shen looked at Bai Lian and Du Gufeng. Bai Lian was still an Earth Saint Master while Du Gufeng was a Heaven Saint Master. They took far longer than the 4 others. Even after reducing the amount of blood he had given them, they still found it extremely difficult to refine. The 2 of them were very stern and would appear in pain from time to time. Their bodies gently quivered as if they were enduring intense pain. Jian Shen observed the 2 of them carefully. He had already made preparations to send them into the artifact space, if the situation took a turn for the worse, in order to prevent any accidents happening to them as they refined the Saint Emperor's blood. Du Gufeng finally roused an hour later. He had benefited a ton after refining the blood of a Saint Emperor. Ignoring the fact that his body had toughened up, even his cultivation had risen to the 4th cycle from the 2nd. Jian Shen did not give Du Gufeng any time to rest. He immediately made him consume the peach and tea, so that his strength could increase one final time. 2 hours later, Bai Lian finally roused as well. Her face was rather pale and exhausted. She was the weakest among all of them, only an Earth Saint Master, so it was extremely difficult for her to refine the blood. However, the effects were evident. She had reached the peak of the 6th cycle from the 3rd. Fortunately, the violent factors in the blood had mostly been removed, or she would not have been able to refine the blood at all. Just a drop of it might have even been enough to kill her. The blood of a few powerful immortals could kill Saint Emperors, so the blood of Saint Emperors could also easily kill Earth Saint Masters. Soon after Bai Lian finished refining the blood, she consumed the peach and tea as well. She entered a higher stage of cultivation. Although the 5th grade immortal peaches possessed a tremendous amount of energy that did not match up to its size, absorbing it all could not be achieved by any one person. It would depend on the person's strength and talent. Jian Shen practiced the chaotic body, so he had a tremendous demand for energy. He also refined energy at a rate far greater than ordinary people, which was why he was able to absorb an entire 5th grade immortal peach. However, that was not the case for the group of people here. Even Ming Dong and Yu Yu, who possessed extraordinary talent, could only absorb parts of the energy. At that moment, white mist formed from pure energy drifted out of them and dispersed into the surroundings. The mist was extremely thick, such that it shrouded them. From afar, they seemed to be wrapped in a large, white cocoon. Jian Shen was helpless to deal with this situation. All he could do was watch because he was not powerful enough to seal in the tremendous energy right now. He had learned from the sword spirits that an immortal was needed to seal in the energy from the peaches. As the energy dispersed into the surroundings, the energy of the world in the mountain range quickly became very dense. It constantly increased. Jian Shen sat on a nearby mountain as he used his soul to watch over them as he comprehended the sword. He had not understood all the sword techniques he had learned from the sword spirits. Several days later, 3 tremendous presences suddenly appeared. Ming Dong, Huang Yuan, and Biyao all broke through to Saint King, drawing in rainbow clouds, which covered a radius of several 100,000 kilometers. The rainbow colors from the clouds were bright and resplendent as 3 layers of them stacked on top of one another. They illuminated the world and dyed the entire region a shade of rainbow colors. Jian Shen stood up on the mountain and waved his hand. Suddenly, a gentle force surged over and enveloped Du Gufeng and Bai Lian. He took them elsewhere, preventing any disturbances caused by Ming Dong, Biyao, and Huang Yuan's breakthroughs. The rainbow clouds in the sky had caused a very large commotion on the continent. The birth of Saint Kings was extremely significant to the various organizations across the continent. Particularly in an age that lacked Saint Emperors, Saint Kings were even more valuable than they were before. Another person's become a Saint King. Fantastic, we just happen to be in need of Saint Kings. All the Saint Kings in Mercenary City glanced in the direction of Flame City. No, there seems to be 3 layers of rainbow clouds stacked upon one another. Are there 3 people becoming Saint Kings at the same time? Sunxiong was the first one to discover the abnormality of the clouds. He was surprised. You're right. There really are 3 layers of clouds stacked together. We may not be able to see them from so far away, but I can clearly sense 3, said a Saint King at great perfection. Surprise filled his face since 3 people simultaneously becoming Saint Kings was very rare. It seems to be in the direction of Flame City. Have Saint Rulers of the Flame Mercenaries broken through? That may not be the case. There's some hermit and ancient clans in that direction as well. It might be them. Quite a few Saint Kings discussed the matter in Mercenary City. It was quite a significant matter for 3 Saint Kings to appear together on the Tian Yuan continent. No one was certain who they were. However, it was only a casual discussion. This matter was not enough to draw them over to see what was going on. Only the breakthrough of Saint Emperors would attract them. Ming Dong, Bai Hai, and Huang Wan used the Violet Cloud Peaches and Comprehension Tea to become Saint Kings. The presences from them were as vast as an ocean. They were enough to kick up large gales that swept through the surroundings, where even the clouds in the sky were affected. The rainbow clouds churned as a result. The 3 of them had not roused from their cultivation yet. The effects of the immortal peaches and tea were still present, allowing their strength to skyrocket, as if there was no end to it. Chapter 1377, Breakthroughs complete at this moment, another tremendous presence erupted as well. 4 presences appeared at the same time, causing the energy in the surroundings to become chaotic. The wind in the surroundings became even more violent as well. Yu had also broken through to Saint King, drawing in more rainbow clouds. There were now 4 layers of clouds in the sky. With the 4 layers combined, the clouds spanned across an unprecedented area. They almost enveloped the area 1,000,000 kilometers away. Even in Mercenary City, the distant horizon glowed with rainbow light. The Saint Kings who had gathered in Mercenary City all looked in the direction of Flame City. They were all astounded. It was already an overwhelming matter for 3 people to simultaneously become Saint Kings on the Tian Yuan continent. It was extremely rare even in the prosperous ancient times. There were 4 people becoming Saint Kings now, and they were all located in the same region. They had no choice but to feel astounded. Good, good. Fantastic, another person's become a Saint King. Our continent's power has increased slightly again. The young really are going to be surpassing the old, a Saint King at great perfection praised. Has the breakthrough to Saint King become easier than before? Many people connected the 4 simultaneous breakthroughs to this question. Back in the mountain range near Flame City, Yu was clearly different from everyone else when she broke through. White, clear, and gentle light flickered on her body, as if she was a moon in the night. Endless amounts of white light gathered behind her and condensed into a huge round moon in the end. It was extremely bright and gave off a gentle glow. It illuminated the surroundings, adding a unique color to the rainbow world that the clouds created. Jian Shen stared at Yu from afar. He knew that Yu's cultivation method was extremely extraordinary, far more powerful than Saint-tier cultivation methods or cultivation methods of Saint Emperors. This was why a phenomenon like this had occurred as soon as she broke through to Saint King. Afterward, Du Gufeng and Bai Lian broke through as well, reaching Saint Ruler. The energy from the Violet Cloud Peaches still remained, continuing to carry their strength through the cultivation levels like a hot knife through butter. In the sky, 2 layers of 5-colored rainbow clouds silently formed, enveloping an area of 100 kilometers. However, since 4 layers of 7-colored rainbow clouds already occupied the sky, the 2 layers were ignored. Many people even missed them altogether. A few figures appeared one after another in the surroundings. Not only did the event attract the saint rulers of a few hermit and ancient clans, even quite a few heaven saint masters had come. This is unbelievable. The 4 who have broken through to Saint King are actually all in the depths of this mountain range. I never thought that there would be 4 powerful experts hidden here, a saint ruler from a hermit clan softly said. He found this news difficult to believe. Shoo, don't make too much of a disturbance. We don't want to disturb the 4 seniors who are breaking through. Let's go see what the 4 seniors are like. The saint rulers and heaven saint masters began to carefully advance toward the depths of the mountain range. They wanted to see the 4 saint kings personally. In the end, the group of them stopped 10 kilometers away. They could see the saint kings from very far away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's actually 6 people cultivating there, but they're all enshrouded by a white mist. We can't see what they look like, and there's someone else nearby guarding them. That person sure is weird. He actually carries 2 swords on his back. That's not mist. It's formed from extremely pure energy of the world. My God, have I seen wrong? Such pure energy of the world is actually drifting from their bodies. No wonder I felt that the energy in this mountain range was countless times richer than elsewhere. That doesn't seem to be energy of the world. It's countless times denser and purer than the energy of the world we know. Who are they? The saint rulers and heaven saint masters all discussed among themselves and all felt shocked. All of them spoke very gently or used communication techniques to communicate. They were afraid of disturbing the people there. Everyone, I am the captain of the flame mercenaries, Jian Chen. My friends are cultivating here, so please do not approach them and disturb them. Otherwise, I can only cause you offense, Jian Chen said to all of them through a communication technique. What? The captain of the flame mercenaries. I've actually just heard from the captain of the flame mercenaries. It's that person with 2 swords on his back. I never thought he'd actually be the great Saint Emperor Jian Chen. Those people are actually being guarded personally by Saint Emperor Jian Chen. Everyone back off. We can't get too close. I've actually witnessed Saint Emperor Jian Chen with my own bare eyes. Am I dreaming? Jian Chen stated his own identity and immediately surprised the people in the surroundings. If they did not become excited for some reason, they became filled with dread. Their gazes toward Jian Chen were either filled with fear or abnormal excitement. Jian Chen's name had resonated throughout the continent long ago. Not only was this because he was the 4th Saint Emperor on the continent, but he was also an extremely powerful one as well, having defeated 2 Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent in a single stroke. Jian Chen had become a legend across the continent now. He was as well known as Mo Tianyun from the ancient times, or possibly even more famous, because he had cultivated for less than a century. Even in ancient times, there had never been anyone who had become a Saint Emperor without even reaching 100 years in age. The people who had been drawn over by the activity became extremely obedient after learning Jian Chen's identity. They all retreated to several dozen kilometers away by themselves. They watched on from afar and even watched their own breathing. They were afraid of disturbing the people in cultivation by breathing too loudly. As time went on, more and more people appeared. No saint kings had been drawn over, but there were quite a few saint rulers and heaven saint master. However, none of the people who had come later on dared to get any closer after being seriously warned by the people who had gathered earlier. They had taken up a role of protecting the people in cultivation by themselves. There were people of the flame mercenaries among them. They were filled with pride when they heard that their own captain was there. The group of people's breakthrough took around a dozen of days to complete. Their strength had undergone an overwhelming change with the increase this time, with Ming Dong in particular. He was the strongest, having reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King, followed by Huang Wan and Yu Yu at the 7th heavenly layer. Bai Hai on the other hand fell behind. As the person who had reached Saint Rulers many years ago, he was now at the 6th heavenly layer of Saint King. Du Gufeng had become a Saint King along with the 4 of them. He reached the 4th heavenly layer from a heaven sent master in the beginning. Only Bai Lian was the weakest, but even with that being the case, she had reached the peak of the 9th heavenly layer as a saint ruler. She was quite close to becoming a Saint King. They were all filled with joy when they roused from cultivation, Ming Dong in particular. He had reached the 8th heavenly layer of Saint King in a single stroke from Saint Ruler, making him the strongest among all of them. This comprehension is just far too wondrous. It can help me comprehend the mysteries of the world so easily. It makes it hundreds of times easier than comprehending the mysteries beneath Mercenary City, Ming Dong excitedly exclaimed. Jian Chen also faintly smiled. He was happy for their drastic increase in strength. A 5th grade Violet Cloud Peach was enough for a mortal to become an immortal in 100 days and surpass Saint Emperor. This was why the Immortal Peach was a priceless heavenly resource even in the Immortals world. It was extremely valuable. However, they were unable to absorb all the energy from the Immortal Peaches due to their restrictions in strength and talent. A lot of it was wasted, which was why a single peach was only able to make them become Saint Kings. A few people gathered in the surroundings finally became bold enough to approach them. They congratulated them sincerely, but when they discovered that the people who had broken through were part of the upper echelon of the Flame Mercenaries, their mouths hung agape once again. They were stunned by Bai Lian in particular. She had only been an Earth Saint Master before, and within just a dozen days, she had become a 9th heavenly layer Saint Ruler. She was even more powerful than them, so the people who had come over with congratulations all became flabbergasted. They struggled to accept the reality of the matter. At that moment, they even thought that their cultivation of thousands of years had been a complete waste. Chapter 1378, Attack, 1. After returning to Flame City, the upper echelons break through to Saint Ruler and Saint King spread through the city like wildfire. It threw the people in the city into great shock, the people of the Flame Mercenaries affected in particular. They all put down their matters at hand and gathered in groups as they celebrated. They cheered for the increase in the mercenaries' strength. The Flame Mercenaries had once been a powerful organization that even the 10 protector clans feared, but it was all due to their captain, Jian Chen, and the 3 magical beasts. The Flame Mercenaries only possessed a few Saint Rulers aside from them. It was different now. Huang Wan, Yu Yu, Bai Hai, Ming Dong, and Dugu Feng had all become Saint Kings, and even Bai Lian had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. They had no need to fear the protector clans anymore with such a powerful combination. Perhaps they could not match up to the protector clans in terms of heritage, but they could match up in strength at the very least. The strength of the mercenaries made all its members extremely excited and emotional. All the people entered seclusion again right after their strength had increased. They had grown just far too quickly within the past few days, so they needed to practice their new abilities, or they would not be able to display their power in battle at all. A few days later, a series of cries rang out from a large bird in the distant sky. The bird was 5 meters wide. It had collided with the golden barrier outside, producing a miserable cry as it fell out of the sky. On the back of the bird sat 4 people. Due to the momentum, they all struck the golden barrier as well. They became dizzy and fell off the bird. However, 2 of them were Heaven Saint Masters and could fly. They controlled themselves very quickly before moving through the air, saving one of their Earth Saint Master companions each. In the end, the 4 of them landed safely on the ground despite the shock. They rubbed their heads as they stared at the barrier around Flame City in doubt. A huge bird beside them flapped its wings as it stood up with difficulty. Its head had become bloodied and its neck had been broken. Where did this barrier come from? Why can't we pass through it? Have we been kicked out of the group after leaving back then? A young man in his 20s stared at the barrier like a victim as he complained in displeasure. The Flame Mercenaries are becoming more and more established. With this powerful barrier, people are unable to enter the city by air. The only way in is through the gates, said a middle-aged man. His face was resolute while his eyes were fixated on the city walls. At this moment, a group of guards on similar magical beast mounts rushed out of the city with lightning-like speed. They charged toward the 4 of them and surrounded them. Who are you? Don't you know that it's forbidden to fly in Flame City? State your identities and intentions, the middle-aged leader coldly commanded. He was a Heaven Saint Master and wore armor forged from tungsten alloy. He seemed to possess quite an impressive demeanor. Now that the Flame Mercenaries had powered up, even the guards had an air of complacency around them because of the glory. Who's in charge of the Flame Mercenaries right now? Is it Jian Chen or Sister Bai Lian? Why don't you hurry up and report to them that the 4 of us have returned? The one, who seemed the youngest among them, slowly replied, like an old man. He did not treat the Heaven Saint Master's words with any importance at all. The Heaven Saint Master's face sank and his eyes narrowed in a single moment. Their captain was now a legendary Saint Emperor on the continent. His status was so great that even great Saint Kings needed to treat him courteously when meeting him. It was an unforgivable crime for the group of insignificant Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters to directly refer to their captain by his name. Just when the leader of the guards wanted to send out the order to capture the 4 of them, his gaze suddenly froze. His eyes became fixated on the young man who had called Jian Chen by his name, before his face abruptly took on a new expression. He then quickly glanced over the 3 others and became surprised. He asked, "Are you Xiao Tianyu, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zheng, and Signorin, the 4 people Jian Chen is looking for? I never thought that there would still be people who remember us after being gone for so long." "Yes, I am Xiao Tianyu." "Oh right, who cast down the barrier around Mercenary City? Why didn't they even tell us?" "It hurt a lot," the youngest looking person present grumbled. He was little Fatty, Houston's grandson. After these years of roaming the continent, he had become a handsome young man. His face was filled with the results of traveling through wind and rain. It was resolute and rather cold. The Heaven Saint Master hurriedly dismounted and politely bowed to the 4 of them. He said, "I am Zhuo Fan. I didn't know you were the 4 sirs before, so please forgive me if I have offended you. I don't know what's up with this barrier either. All I know is that it suddenly appeared recently. Whatever. Let's go into the city and find Jian Chen. We have been hearing rumors that he has become a Saint Emperor recently and defeated 2 Class 9 magical beasts from the Beast God continent. I know these rumors are probably exaggerated, but it still should be something seeing how the entire continent knows about them," Xiao Tianyu nonchalantly said. Afterward, he called out to Wang Yifeng, Yun Zheng, and Signorin to enter the city. "You finally returning. Looking for you really wasn't easy." At this moment, clear laughter rang out. Jian Chen stood at the entrance of the city in white robes as he looked at the 4 of them. "Jian Chen!" Xiao Tianyu cried out. He immediately rushed over and hugged Jian Chen. The 2 of them laughed from the bottom of their hearts. They had not seen each other for many years, so they were extraordinarily excited to see one another again. "Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zheng, Signorin, let's enter the city first. I've already gotten people to prepare a banquet to receive you after so much traveling." Jian Chen laughed as he directed them to the city lord's estate. Behind, the guard, who was a Heaven Saint Master, stared at the 4 of them in envy. They were only Heaven Saint Masters or Earth Saint Masters, yet they had been personally received by their great captain. Probably even Saint Kings could not have enjoyed such treatment. At the banquet, Jian Chen drank and talked with the 4 of them. They slowly told him about the things they had experienced over the years, and Jian Chen had also confirmed the rumors they had heard from various parts of the continent. They all became stunned when they learned that Jian Chen now possessed the strength to overwhelm Saint Emperors. The morning of the next day, Jian Chen brought the 4 of them back to the mountains where the tungsten alloy mine used to be. He also let out the several dozen elites from the artifact space, planning on increasing all their strength in a single stroke. At this moment, a terrifying pulse of energy appeared from far away. It caused the earth to violently shake. Chapter 1379, Attack 2. The mountain range violently rumbled as great thick cracks began to cover the entire region. Whole mountains began to collapse as rocks rolled down, creating heavy booms. The area that was shaking was extremely vast. The entire continent was affected. Even if someone was several million kilometers away, they could still sense the trembling ground. Jian Chen arrived on the highest mountain in a flash. He stood straight as he gazed into the distance. He looked in the direction of Mercenary City. Although it was impossible to see anything since Mercenary City was just too far away, he could still clearly sense just how powerful the pulse of energy was. Jian Chen became stern. However, his eyes began to shine as well. Not only did they become extremely sharp like drawn swords, they were filled with powerful battle intent as well. Jian Chen, what's happened? The others arrived beside Jian Chen and stared off into the horizon. The energy pulse from the distance was so powerful that even Xiao Tianyu and Wang Yifeng could sense it, even though they were just Heaven's Saint Masters. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and said gruffly, "Little fatty, gather all the people here. We're returning to Flame City immediately." "All right." Xiao Tianyu firmly responded. He did not ask why as he immediately gathered the several dozen people. Jian Chen could not help but dismiss the thought of increasing their strength today. He returned to Flame City with Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yunzheng, Seniorin, and the several dozen elites from the artifact space. He immediately gave the command of closing off the city, stopping all entries and exits. Afterward, he left them behind and left the city through the space gate there with Xiao Jin. Yu Yu, Bai Lian, Huang Wan, Bai Hai, and the others all emerged from seclusion soon after Jian Chen had left. They all stood in the city lord's estate as they cast their gazes into the distance. What's happened? Why has brother left so hurriedly? And why has he brought Xiao Jin with him? Bai Lian asked rather uneasily. She had a vague idea why. Bai Hai, Ming Dong, De Gufeng, and the others became stern. Bai Hai solemnly said, "If I've guessed currently, the people of the world of Forsaken Saints have come. The calamity is beginning. Since the calamity is here, what are we standing around for? Let's all go to Mercenary City to help. Come, let's immediately open a space gate to Mercenary City," Ming Dong cried out as he was brimming with interest to fight. However, he received a guard's report that the space gate could no longer be activated. "Since we can't activate the space gate, then I'll use my abilities as a Saint King to make one," Ming Dong smiled confidently and immediately began to rip open space. However, his smile soon froze because he discovered that he was unable to rip through the space there as an 8th heavenly layer Saint Kings, making space gates impossible to form. What is happening? Ming Dong's face twitched a few times unnaturally. Bai Hai looked at the golden barrier in the sky and emotionally sighed. Xiao Jin's barrier is becoming more and more complete. Looks like my dear grandson has taught Xiao Jin quite a few things over the past few days. Unless you possess strength greater than the person who set down the barrier, you're unable to rip open a space gate. Then I'll fly out of here. With my increase of strength, I can reach Mercenary City without wasting much time at all, Ming Dong pridefully said. He immediately took off, headed for the sky, but all he hit was the barrier. With a splat, he was stuck there with his legs and arms spread apart, before falling down in a horrendous manner. This barrier can actually stop us from leaving, and space gates don't work either. What is Jian Chen's intentions? He's actually locked us in here, Ming Dong said unhappily as he returned to Bai Hai's side in a messy fashion. I heard that the world of Forsaken Saints has many experts. Just the number of Saint Emperors they have outnumbered the Saint Kings of our continent by several times over. It's extremely likely that the people taking part in the invasion this time are Saint Emperors. Jian Chen wants to protect us and not have us fall in battle, which is why he's gotten Xiao Jin to trap us here. He doesn't want us to take part, Yu Yu gently said. Her eyes were filled with worry. Our strength is still not enough. We need to continue our secluded cultivation, De Gufeng nonchalantly added before returning to his secret room to continue his cultivation. There was a ditch 1,000 meters wide in the ruins of Mercenary City. The ditch was pitch black and seemingly bottomless. However, terrifying ripples of energy would surge into the sky and obliterate the clouds. The energy there caused the space there to violently distort. The experts gathered in the surroundings all stood afar with stern expressions. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the 3 Saint Emperors the Beast God Continent were all present. They all maintained their guard and were ready for battle. Oh no, there's coming over. They're all Saint Emperors. So many Saint Emperors, Xiao Ling's voice rang out from the empty air. She had materialized herself in that moment as well. Her young face was filled with fear as she stared at the depths of the ditch in unease. When the experts heard that they were all Saint Emperors, they revealed extremely ugly expressions, causing the atmosphere there to become extremely heavy. At this moment, a space gate ripped open several dozen kilometers away. Jianchen emerged with a young boy, who was holding his hand, before quickly making his way over. His appearance caused Lankiros and Kaiser to narrow their eyes. Their gazes became filled with fear, while even the Path Lord of Carnal Desire's gaze toward Jianchen became filled with dread as well. However, their gazes were focused on the two swords on Jianchen's back for the most part. They were not the only ones who paid attention to Jianchen's swords. At that moment, everyone present had shifted their attention away from the ditch to Jianchen's swords. Many of them had not personally witnessed the power of the swords, but they knew that Jianchen had used just one of them to defeat the two Saint Emperors from the Beast God continent with a single attack. Big brother, you're finally here. The baddies from the world of Forsaken Saints are all coming. They have so many Saint Emperors, at least several hundred. What should we do? Xiao Ling arrived beside Jianchen as she asked him while clinging to his hand. She was almost in tears. What? Several hundred Saint Emperors. Xiao Ling's words erupted in the minds of the Saint Kings like a bolt from the blue. They all paled. They had thought that only around a dozen or several dozen Saint Emperors were coming. They had never thought that there would be several hundred. Jianchen gently rubbed Xiao Ling's head and said, "Don't be scared, Xiao Ling, aren't I here? I'll accompany you in battle and kill enemies together. All you need to do is use the abilities from your master to attack the enemies as soon as they appear, right?" Xiao Ling immediately calmed down quite a bit when she heard that Jianchen would be fighting with her. She firmly nodded. Chapter 1380, Attack, 3, Great-Grandson, come here, an ancient and amicable voice rang out. Changyang Zhu Shao smiled at Jianchen. His gaze toward him was filled with approval and pride. Changyang Zhu Yunshao and Changyang Zhu Yeyun's gaze toward Jianchen was filled with mixed emotions. The two of them had never thought that Jianchen would be able to grow at such a shocking pace, where the Saint Emperors of both the Tianyuan continent and the Beast God continent treated him with so much fear. Jianchen held on to Xiao Jin's hand as he arrived beside Changyang Zhu Shao. Xiao Ling followed behind him. He bowed as a junior and said, "I greet the great-grandfathers and grandmother." Both Changyang Zhu Shao and Changyang Zhu Yunshao were far greater than Jianchen in terms of seniority. Even with the Changyang ancestor, over a dozen generations had passed since he had founded the Changyang clan. As a result, they were all Jianchen's great-grandmothers and grandfathers. Changyang Zhu Shao, Changyang Zhu Yunshao, and Changyang Zhu Yeyun all happily smiled. Even before a battle of life and death, they were still unable to hide the pride they felt inside. The Saint Kings in the surroundings all became green with envy when they saw Jianchen bow to the three of them. After all, Jianchen was a true Saint Emperor in their eyes now. This was an overwhelming matter for Saint Kings to receive a bow from a Saint Emperor. Many people immediately became riddled with jealousy when they discovered just how much the barrier spirit relied on Jianchen. However, they did not know Xiao Jin's true identity. None of them were able to see through his strength, or no one would have known how they would end up reacting if they found out that two Origin Realm experts relied on Jianchen so much. The veiled heavenly enchantress looked at Jianchen from afar from within a group of people. Her enchanting eyes would shift to Xiao Jin from time to time. She secretly clenched her teeth as her gaze toward him became extremely mixed. Even her hand around the zither of the demonic cry tightened slightly. "Great-grandson, leave the child in the divine hall. There will be extremely many Saint Emperors attacking from the world of Forsaken Saints this time. We won't be able to look after him once we start fighting." Changyang Zhu Shao looked at Xiao Jin before pulling out a divine hall in an attempt to protect him. He guessed that Xiao Jin might have been Jianchen's child. He had no idea why Jianchen would bring his child here, but with Jianchen's special status, it would be inconvenient to ask. Jianchen had no idea how to react with what Changyang Zhu Shao attempted to do. Just when he wanted to say something, a violent boom suddenly rang out from the ditch, together with a violent spatial stream. After the spatial stream gushed out, tremendous presences radiated from the ditch. They quickly surged into the sky as a group of saint emperors from the world of forsaken saints charged into the sky. Their terrifying presences swept through the surroundings, causing space to collapse and the world to spin. Just their presences had forced countless saint kings back. "Activate the formations," called out the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. His voice was thunderous as it reverberated 10,000 kilometers away. Countless formations appeared, not just on the ground but in the air as well. These formations were all the strongest formations cast down by the greatest formation masters on the Tian Yuan continent after pouring their hearts out. Within them hid the greatest trapping and killing formations from ancient clans as well. As soon as the formations appeared, the surroundings became a mix of formations. Layers upon layers of them appeared and flickered with different colors. The pulses of energy easily ripped through space as darkness descended everywhere. The saint emperors from the world of forsaken saints who had charged out first were trapped. These formations were all linked together, so their power stacked together. Even though they were cast down by saint kings, several linked formations were still enough to trap or even heavily injure a few saint emperors. There were 500 saint emperors in total who had come this time. Several dozen were trapped by the formations while a portion of the others immediately forcefully attacked when they saw that they had become trapped. They attacked the formations from outside to assist the people inside in breaking free. The other saint emperors charged into the surroundings as they engaged in a battle against the four races. Use the emperor armaments. A great elder from a protector clan yelled and immediately pooled his power with others to control the emperor armament to battle the foreign saint emperors. The other protector clans all controlled their ancestral weapons to attack the opponents after seeing the situation. They had originally placed their emperor armaments there so that the great elder Tian Jian could cast down an absolute killing formation at the entrance to the other world, but after he had left to refine the divine hall of Mercenary City, he had not emerged since. This was why they could only give up on the idea of the killing formation. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City sighed. He also led all the experts of Mercenary City into battle. The foreign world had invaded too quickly. They had not finished their preparations. The Great Elder was still refining the absolute divine hall while Houston, who had just become a saint emperor, was missing as well. The reinforcements from the Sea realm had not gathered either. None of the 3 saint emperors of the Sea race were present. Other than the Changyang clan and Tyrant's Blade School, the protector clans all wielded their emperor armaments against the saint emperors of the foreign world. As the emperor armaments of the 2 other protector clans had been taken away, the experts from the 2 clans could only use powerful secret techniques in battle. A huge shield hung in the sky on the side of the 100 races. It was several hundred meters across as it blocked an entire region like a wall. It endured the attacks from over a dozen saint emperors. This was the clan treasure of the dwarves from the ancient times, the Heaven's Guard. It had been created by the strongest dwarven king, who had poured his heart into it, making it extremely tough. Its glory had been exhibited in the War of the Ancient Times. However, the shield became dented in a short amount of time as it was rained on by the attacks of the foreign saint emperors. Cracks slowly spread across it. The dwarven king who controlled the shield vomited blood from behind. Not only was there blood, there were pieces of organs as well. The dwarven king was only a saint king at great perfection. The attacks that the Heaven's Guard withstood were just far too violent. Some of the force was redirected onto the dwarven king. Even after being drastically weakened, it still was enough to heavily injure him. He was unable to last much longer. It's a pity that I'm not a saint emperor. If I had the strength of a saint emperor, I would not be reduced to such a horrible shape from blocking the attacks of over a dozen saint emperors, the dwarven king sorrowfully sighed. He felt despair as he stared at the several hundred saint emperors from the foreign world. A huge tree grew among the 100 races. It shone with resplendent green light and was brimming with life. It was the elven god tree, also originating from ancient times. It had survived the test of time without falling apart. The elven god tree was several thousand meters tall and, combined with its thick trunk, seemed like a pillar that held up the sky. It shone with endless green light, enveloping the entire battlefield. All injured people would rapidly recover as they bathed in the green light. The hundreds and thousands of branches from the tree danced as a flurry in the sky. All the branches extended indefinitely, coiling around the nearest Saint Emperor. Countless branches stabbed into the Saint Emperor and endlessly began to drain away the Saint Emperor's life. Chapter 1381, A Battle of Two Worlds. 1. The Saint Emperor trapped by the elven god tree began a desperate struggle. Terrifying pulses of energy surged out of his body as he attempted to break free from the restrictions of the tree. However, the elven god tree was an ancient existence. Its toughness was incomparable to ordinary tree branches. All its branches coiled around the foreign Saint Emperor, wrapping him up like a cocoon. No matter how much the Saint Emperor struggled, he was unable to break free. The tremendous life force within him was drained away by the elven god tree. His presence rapidly weakened during the process and he struggled less and less. He was weakening. On the other hand, the elven god tree began to shine even brighter with its green light. Its huge expanse of vegetation rapidly consolidated. From a closer inspection, it was evident that the tree was not tangible but illusionary. Behind, the lycanthropes entered their battle mode. They became half human and half wolf. Their heads remained human while their bodies became wolf-like. They were covered with thick, dense fur and worked together to fend off a Saint Emperor. Though, they were still not the Saint Emperor's opponent. Soon, the lycanthrope Saint Kings all became heavily injured by the Saint Emperor and were dyed red with blood. The berserkers, flame demons, lamias were the same as the lycanthropes. They all attacked a single Saint Emperor with several Saint Kings or even a dozen Saint Kings, but the disparity between the two cultivation levels was extremely vast. They were still not their opponents even with their advantage in numbers. They all became covered in wounds while the Saint Emperors were barely injured at all. Toward the very back of the 100 races was a group of people completely covered by gray cloaks. There were not many of them, only a few hundred, and not all of them were Saint Kings. There were many Saint Rulers, Heaven Saint Masters, Earth Saint Masters, and even Great Saint Masters among them. They currently all sat on the ground. They formed an odd formation while their hands were forming seals, and they were also chanting. They were the shamans of the 100 races. They were not powerful, and there were less than 1,000 of them in total. They were known for their curses. Heavenly awakening. Suddenly, all the shamans called out together. Their voices were hoarse, but they were filled with an irresistible charm. Their voices actually drowned out the sounds of battle. An odd pulse radiated from all the shamans, before fusing together into a single ripple that shot toward a Saint Emperor. The ripple seemed to be able to pass through space and time, striking the Saint Emperor who was fighting against the berserkers in a single moment. The Saint Emperor suddenly froze and vomited blood as if he had been heavily injured. His body cracked like a vase and was dyed with blood in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the ferocious attacks from several berserkers struck the Saint Emperor, causing his body to fall apart and disintegrate on the spot. Only his soul remained, filling him with fear. However, before his soul could escape, it was cleaved into two by a berserker, killing him off completely. There were two figures hidden in the empty space among the battlefield of the 100 races. They did not give off any presences or any traces of existence, where even Saint Emperors struggled to discover them. Even when space violently shook, it was not enough to force them out. They both wore long, silver robes. They possessed an elegant stature and were able to move about secretively. They could always attack from behind and catch their opponents off guard, dealing a fatal blow. They were the shadows of the 100 races. They possessed a glorious past in the ancient times, but they had declined now. There were only 10 people in total who were a part of their race, and the two present here were the two strongest rulers. They were Saint Kings of the 5th and 7th heavenly layers. The ground violently shook as several giant, 100-meter-tall rock men fought against the foreign Saint Emperors. Their bodies were extremely tough, but they were still unable to endure the attacks from the Saint Emperors. A large boulder would shatter when they were hit by an attack, or the attack would even pierce them. The rock men were extraordinary. They did not possess flesh or blood, and their vitality was just overwhelming. Their bodies rearranged themselves time after time. Even though it seemed like they had been beaten to a horrendous shape, their battle prowess did not decrease at all. The sea race was the most miserable. Only a portion of the sea goddess hall had come, and they did not have a saint emperor leading them. They had to resist the attacks from the foreign saint emperors by themselves, so just after a few short moments, 5 saint kings had fallen. Only 2 of them managed to flee with their souls. The 3 saint emperors of the beast god continent fought at the very front. They were extremely powerful and, coupled with their bodies as magical beasts, they were extraordinarily tough. There was rarely anyone from the world of Forsaken Saint who could take them on in a one-on-one situation. This did not mean that the saint emperors of the foreign world were weak, but that the 3 saint emperors had already reached a higher level in cultivation as saint emperors. They were already stronger than quite a few of the invaders, which was why they could keep them at bay. However, Kaiser, Lankiros, and Sangxiong all bathed in blood right now. They were rather injured as they had to stop several saint emperors each. The battle was absolutely devastating. All the ground below had virtually been destroyed, forming countless, bottomless ditches. Gentle waves of heat radiated from below. They were already approaching the mantle of the land. The entire Tianyuan continent violently shook. The ground in the center of the battlefield was close to disappearing completely. The pitch-black cracks in space constantly spanned out and did not close even after a very long time. The 100 races, sea race, and magical beasts were faced with extremely great pressure. Many of their experts had fallen. Only the humans had it easier. Jian Chen and Xiao Ling lead the humans into the depths of the enemies. Xiao Jin had been sent to Changyang Zhu Xiao and the other side, by Jian Chen, to ensure their safety. Xiao Ling's mind was not fully mature, but she struck out extremely decisively and without any hesitation or mercy. She was an origin realm expert, so the saint emperors were no different from ants in her eyes. With a wave of her hand, she shot a wave of white light toward the foreign saint emperors. The white light possessed unfathomable power, and as soon as the saint emperors came in contact with it, they would vomit blood and become heavily injured. A few weaker people even died after touching it. At that moment, the concept of ant-like saint emperors was truly displayed through the use of Xiao Ling's hands. Jian Chen fought as hard as he could as well. He charged into the groups of enemies while wielding the Ziying sword, using all the power he had to fight. He used his chaotic force to supplement his way of the sword, pushing his battle prowess to the limits. In just a short moment, he managed to kill over a dozen saint emperors while even more were injured by him. The Qing Suo sword did not sit on his back idly either. He controlled it with his soul. He had split his attention, using the Ziying sword to kill his opponents while the Qing Suo sword swept the skies. There were many humans behind them who used saint-tier battle skills. They drew in the pressure of the world as several of them would attack a single foreign saint emperor together. The heavenly enchantress sat high in the air near the back of the human side. She placed the zither of the demonic cry on her knees as she played it with all her focus. Each note seemed soft, but they were as loud as great big bells. They drowned out all the sounds of fighting, allowing everyone to clearly hear them. The sound of the zither targeted specific opponents. Whenever the foreign saint emperors heard the sound, they would immediately feel their souls quiver. They would alternate between muddle-headedness and drowsiness from time to time. Illusions would also be conjured before them. A huge zither seemed to have condensed behind the heavenly enchantress. The 36 strings were clearly visible, and they were gently trembling. They resonated with the sounds of the zither of the demonic cry. Chapter 1382, A Battle of Two Worlds, 2. Suddenly, surging battle intent flared up in the eyes of several saint emperors as they struck their companions beside them in the swiftest fashion possible. Spurt. Being caught off guard, their companions became heavily injured from the unexpected attacks and shot backwards while vomiting blood. Similar scenes happened across the entire battlefield. More than 30 saint emperors suddenly turned on their companions with their weapons. None of them had thought that their companions would turn on them, so they all became heavily injured due to being caught off guard. An unlucky saint emperor had even been encircled by several of his companions. Lasting only for a few seconds, his body was obliterated, forcing him to flee with his soul. However, the bell-like sound of a zither rang out right as the Saint Emperor's soul had made it away from the battlefield. It was thunderous to the soul's ears. The powerful sound wave caused the space there to fluctuate, reducing the Saint Emperor's soul to just a few fragments. The invaders began to panic due to that. In just a short moment, a few Saint Emperors had died to their companions' hands. They had all been attacked by several other people, dying bitterly. They'd been affected by the zither and controlled by it. "Find the person playing it and kill them," a Saint Emperor thunderously cried out from the side of the invaders. His cry was so loud that the surroundings shook. He was an extremely powerful Saint Emperor, almost having reached the peak of Saint Emperor. His shout immediately caused a few people, who had almost been swept away by the zither sounds, to sober up. At this moment, a powerful sword chi flew over from behind him. A terrifying killing intent immediately engulfed him, forcing him to shiver despite being such a powerful Saint Emperor. Without any thoughts, he immediately dodged to one side. A sword engulfed by a layer of violet light passed through where he was standing before. The glow of the sword came in contact with his clothes and silently reduced them to dust. A sliver of surprise immediately flashed through Jian Chen's eyes when he saw that his Saint Emperor had actually avoided his attack. However, he did not show any hesitation at all. With twist of the wrist, the Ziying sword stabbed out as a violet stream of light with a certain white glow. This was the sword chi Jian Chen could use after comprehending the way of the sword. This sword chi was a condensation of laws. It had surpassed the boundaries of ordinary sword chi and had combined with the azulate swords, allowing it to become even more powerful. The Saint Emperor showed no fear. With a deep grunt, the energy within him surged out like a tsunami, forming a barrier around him. He swung the huge blade in his hand toward Jian Chen. The blade shot out a gray beam of light. It was filled with a deathly presence, trapping Jian Chen in a cage. Jian Chen immediately felt that he was being suppressed by a mysterious power as endless amounts of gray light infiltrated his body, rapidly gnawing away at his life force. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed as the chaotic force within him surged. He quickly wiped out the deathly presence within him. Ignoring the hazy prison he was in, he stabbed out with the Ziying sword in an unstoppable manner. Ding! With a metallic clash, the Ziying sword surged out of the gray prison and struck the huge blade of the Saint Emperor. The blade had been cleaved in half while the remaining part attached to the hilt quivered. It resonated as if it was crying. The Saint Emperor stared at his broken blade in a daze as shock filled his face. The blade had been with him for several millennia. He had participated in countless battles where the blade had grown with him. Even if he faced against experts at the same level as him, his weapon would not even suffer a scratch. Yet, it was unable to stop Jian Chen's attack, having been cleaved into two like fragile tofu. "Why, you're an Origin Realm expert." The Saint Emperor was shocked. Probably only Origin Realm experts could do something like this, but he did not sense the pressure of an Origin Realm expert from Jian Chen at all. Jian Chen remained emotionless with cold eyes. After cleaving through the blade, the Ziying sword did not slow down at all, piercing the Saint Emperor's chest in the end. The powerful sword chi hidden within immediately erupted. Not only did it instantly devastate his organs, a pure strand of sword chi surged up into his head and wiped out his soul. An azure sword quickly weaved about near Jian Chen as it attacked several dozen Saint Emperors. It was the Qing Suo sword controlled by Jian Chen's soul. The sword was not in Jian Chen's hands, so the power it could display was nowhere near as great as the Ziying sword. However, it was still a sword with a spirit. The sword chi that erupted from it could not be resisted by any way, slaying several Saint Emperors in just a short moment and heavily injuring several dozen more. Many Saint Emperors had already begun to work together as they tried to deal with the Qing Suo sword. Xiao Jin played a part as well. He also possessed strength of the Origin Realm, but he did not commit massacres like Jian Chen and Xiao Ling. He only waved his hand and trapped several Saint Emperors with a golden barrier before standing there in a daze. He stared at the panicking Saint Emperors in interest. He would often only help out and repel the opponents when Changyang Zhu Shao and the others were in danger. Xiao Jin rarely delivered attacks, but whenever he did, they would be shocking. He obliterated a Saint Emperor's body and soul with a single punch. The force and power of his punch had alerted all the human Saint Kings around him. Most of the Saint Emperors from the world of Forsaken Saints were kept busy by Jian Chen and Shaoling. Only a small portion of them were able to attack the four races. The number of enemies that had fallen to Jian Chen and Shaoling's hands had reached 100 now, but several hundred people of the four races had died as well. There were countless more who had been heavily injured. During this time, the elven god tree continued to shine bright. The power it had displayed was shocking to the elves themselves. Although its accomplishments in battle were incomparable to Jian Chen or Shaoling, it had already killed almost 10 foreign Saint Emperors. Without any exceptions, all of them had been wrapped up by the tree's branches before having their life sucked away. All that would be left was a bag of bones. The tree's green light, which was filled with the presence of life, became even more blinding after absorbing the lives of the Saint Emperors. Its tremendous life force enveloped the entire battlefield and assisted the injured people. The behavior of the elven god tree piqued the interest of the elves very much, despite their good understanding of it. The tree had existed for an extremely long time, having survived through the ages between now and the ancient times without withering at all. It had always remained very healthy. Except the abilities it displayed now were vastly different from the records contained in the ancient times. This was because the main trunk of the tree was unable to leave the territory of the elves. They had not brought the main trunk this time, only a branch of the tree. Chapter 1383, Tai Ta becomes a Saint Emperor. A divine hall stood like an ice sculpture on the Arctic tundra in the north. The divine hall was snow-white throughout and seemed to have fused with the surroundings. It gave off a magnificent sense of prestige. Protector Shui currently stood at the very top of the divine hall in her silver-white armor without moving at all. Her face was covered by a helmet, only revealing a pair of icy cold eyes that were currently fixated in the direction of the Tianyuan continent. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce space and observe everything happening in Mercenary City despite the tremendous distance. Jian Chen's already achieved some accomplishments now. I never thought that he would comprehend the way of the sword so soon. There's no Saint Emperor now that is his opponent. Only Origin Realm experts can keep him at bay. However, that person in the world of Forsaken Saints is even more powerful. He's comprehended the way of the sword as well, and his comprehension is even greater than Jian Chen. Jian Chen may be growing faster than him, but he will soon come to the Tianyuan continent. With his strength, which is equivalent to godhood, Jian Chen will not be his opponent. He will be doomed. Her Majesty still really cares about her brother, but Jian Chen is the successor of the sword sect of Violet Heavens. The two of them will end up on opposing sides sooner or later. I have agreed with Mo Tianyun to not interfere with Her Majesty and Jian Chen's matters, but it's got nothing to do with me if Jian Chen ends up slain by that person from the world of Forsaken Saints. However, Jian Chen's growth is extremely impressive. If he does not die, he will be able to catch up to him quickly, and with his connection to Her Majesty, Jian Chen might be of help once we return to the Saints' world. Protector Shui mumbled to herself as the light in her eyes flickered uneasily. Within the artifact space, Tai Ta and newbies continued to cultivate like before. Jian Chen had basically stored all the heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm in there, so the two of them could utilize them as they wished. Not only had newbies ingested a large quantity of divine water of the world to change his constitution, he did not miss any heavenly resource Jian Chen had left in the artifact space. He had consumed a few, allowing his strength to constantly increase. He had even made a kettle of comprehension tea using the best spring water available and consumed a 5th-grade violet cloud peach, elevating his strength to the great perfection of Saint King. He had yet to fully absorb the vast energy in the immortal peach, so he was currently inching towards Saint Emperor. Tai Ta's strength had undergone a great increase as well. He currently let out a golden light as he sat there like a giant. He channeled the essence of the world, which shone with various colors. The presence he gave off was as great as a mountain, enough to even make Saint Kings feel like they were suffocating. Tai Ta walked a different path of cultivation that could not be measured using the standards of the Tian Yuan continent. It was a system of its own, where he would undergo a metamorphosis each time he reached a corresponding realm and receive an inheritance from the world. Suddenly, a heavy, dull sound rang out from Tai Ta's body. Immediately, an extremely powerful energy erupted, causing the surrounding space to violently tremble and almost collapse. The hall that Tai Ta had chosen to cultivate in turned to dust from the waves of energy. The entire space was affected. The world there trembled gently as huge, deep cracks spread out with Tai Ta at the epicenter. The energy that had erupted from Tai Ta did not disperse and instead spread out as a pulse, causing mountains to collapse, the ground to crack, and space to become unstable wherever it passed by. The energy was just about to reach the two halls where Nubis and the White Tiger stayed. At this moment, the artifact spirit silently appeared. With a wave of his hand, he moved the halls around before immediately channeling the power of the artifact space to stop the expansion of the energy. In the end, the artifact spirit managed to stop the ripples after a lot of work, preventing them from traveling any further. However, another heavy, dull sound rang from Tai Ta's body like a drum. With the sound, another storm of great energy exploded out of Tai Ta, quickly spreading out with him as the center. This time, the artifact spirit was prepared. It immediately used the power of the artifact to stop the ripples in their tracks. A third and fourth sound rang from Tai Ta's body close after the second. The outcome was exactly the same each time. With every sound, a powerful wave of energy would form. Tai Ta's strength had arrived at a bottleneck and he was currently making a breakthrough into a higher realm. However, since his cultivation method was extremely extraordinary and originated from the world, the breakthrough caused a very great disturbance that was much different than an ordinary person's breakthrough. As the powerful energy surged out of Tai Ta in a seemingly unceasing manner, the artifact spirit finally became stern as well. If this continued, the saint artifact would not be able to withstand it. This was because Tai Ta's strength had already reached the level of saint emperors, which was enough to destroy the space of the artifact. Without any hesitation, the artifact spirit swung its hands and condensed all the power within the space around Tai Ta. In the end, it formed a huge barrier of energy around him. This was a barrier completely condensed from radiant saint force. It was extremely powerful, and Tai Ta seemed to have been wrapped up in a huge cocoon from afar. Bang! Bang! The barrier cast down by the artifact spirit began to violently tremble as it resisted powerful surge of energy. Thin cracks began to cover the barrier. It then shattered loudly when the ninth sound came from Tai Ta. Immediately, a terrifyingly powerful presence radiated from Tai Ta, enough to cause the surroundings to tremble from his presence alone. His presence caused the entire artifact space to shake violently while the surrounding space twisted, as if it was about to collapse from the pressure. The entire artifact space faced the danger of shattering. The artifact spirit panicked. Tai Ta's presence was far more powerful than any regular saint emperor. He had only just broken through, but the artifact spirit felt like he was facing a peak saint emperor. Tai Ta had become a saint emperor, but his strength after breaking through could not be measured according to the standards of the Tian Yuan continent. His strength was far greater than a regular saint emperor. The world gave birth to warring gods, who could be traced throughout history. They were blessed by the world and were known to be the strongest in the world. Every time they broke through, they would undergo a qualitative leap in strength, leaving others in the dust. Stop, this space is going to collapse soon. The artifact spirit called out in a panic. He was clearly flustered right now. Tai Ta was just too powerful. Even without sending out an attack, just his presence alone was enough to destroy the space. This was because the presence possessed an extremely powerful battle intent, which possessed very destructive properties. Tai Ta seemed to hear the artifact spirit's pleading calls and slowly dispersed his presence, allowing the artifact space to gradually calm down. Friend, I can already sense the intense battles outside. There are many saint emperors. The people of the foreign world should be here. Let me out. I want to fight along Jian Chen's side. Tai Ta stood up and spoke to the artifact spirit with his deep, gentle voice. His eyes burned with battle intent. The artifact spirit was shocked. The artifact space was a closed world that resided in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness, but Tai Ta was still able to sense the battle outside, which was unbelievable. Chapter 1384. Tai Ta enters the battle outside. Jian Chen rampaged among the army of Saint Emperors from the foreign world with one of his swords. No one could stop him. Even though there were quite a few peak Saint Emperors, they were unable to last longer than 3 attacks against Jian Chen. The Ziying sword was just too powerful. Whether it was the weapons in their hands or the armor on them, they all became as fragile as tofu before the Ziying sword. Jian Chen and Xiao Ling had already slaughtered to the point where the Saint Emperors shivered inside. The Saint Emperors all viewed them as demons as they fled, so Jian Chen and Xiao Ling had to charge off in certain directions. All the Saint Emperors that the two of them approached would flee in any direction they could out of fear. The battle was extremely intense, with people passing away at all times. The sky had become filled with bloody rain while the ground beneath had sunken, revealing bottomless chasms that emitted waves of heat from the magma below. Not only had Mercenary City been completely destroyed, even the area within 100,000 kilometers had been ruined. All the mountains and rivers nearby had become history, but the affected area was even vaster. The entire continent shook violently. The 3 Hall Masters of the Sea Realm finally arrived at the battle with various Saint Kings behind them. The Sea Realm was stronger than the Tian Yuan continent and the Beast God continent as a whole, and they had basically sent everyone. The number of Saint Kings from them outnumbered the Saint Kings on the Tian Yuan continent by 2 or 3. They became engaged in battles against Saint Emperors as soon as they arrived. The Hall Masters of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven's Spirit Hall had not made full recoveries, so they dragged their injured bodies into battle. The presence Yadrium gave off was as vast as the ocean, striking fear in the hearts of a few foreign Saint Emperors. This was because she had reached the peak of Saint Emperor and had arrived at the border of the Origin Realm. Another Saint Emperor had appeared among the experts of the Sea Realm beside them. She was the strongest Hall Elder of the Sea Realm, Yadrium, having successfully become a Saint Emperor with the heavenly resources Jian Chen had left behind. However, the arrival of the 4 Saint Emperors was still not enough to change the situation at hand. Other than a few humans protected by Jian Chen, Xiao Ling, and Xiao Jin, the other people were suffering heavy casualties. More than half of the humans had passed away already. The invaders suffered heavy casualties as well, having lost over 200 Saint Emperors. Most of them fell to Jian Chen and Xiao Ling's hands. At this moment, Jian Chen narrowed his eyes. He had received a message from the artifact spirit, and with a thought, the saint artifact shot out from his forehead. As soon as it arrived outside, a storm of powerful energy blew over and barraged the saint artifact. With a flash of golden light, Tai Ta suddenly appeared, having emerged from the artifact space. The saint artifact did not linger for a moment longer after releasing Tai Ta. It immediately returned to Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. The battle outside was just far too intense. There was a huge group of Saint Emperors, so just the pulses of energy were enough to rip through space and damage the Saint artifact. Tai Ta, kill to your heart's content. Drive back the invaders of our home. Jian Chen coldly shouted to Tai Ta before continuing toward a region dense with Saint Emperors. Tai Ta nodded firmly. His blood burned with the battles around him, almost causing it to boil. Blinding golden light exploded from Tai Ta, enveloping him. The golden light illuminated the surroundings, outshining the resplendent green light from the elven god tree. He seemed to have become the only existence in the world. At the same time, supreme battle intent flooded the surroundings. The battle intent was like an attack on the soul. All the people who sensed the battle intent could not help but fear Tai Ta. Their courage to battle plummeted. Mysteries of war, mortality breaker. Tai Ta bellowed as his voice surged into the sky and echoed in the surroundings. He raised his high axe high up. It shone with dazzling golden light, fusing with his battle intent. It created a 100-meter-long projection as it fell ahead. The space cracked as the axe fell, creating a huge chasm. It loomed over 4 Saint Emperors within an unstoppable might. The projection of the axe smoothly passed through the 4 saint emperors, and the 4 of them suddenly froze before being cleaved in half. Their souls were unable to escape, dying on the spot as well. Back in the sea realm, Tai Ta was able to fight with the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall without having broken through. Now that he had stepped into a new realm, his strength had drastically increased. Killing Saint Emperors was a piece of cake to him now. The War God. It's the War God. The War God has appeared, good God. I've finally seen the War God, fantastic, fantastic. The War God of our 100 races has returned. Our race will experience glory once more, oh my God. What did I just see? The War God has actually slain 4 Saint Emperors with a single stroke. Am I dreaming? God bless our race. Not only has our War God appeared once more, his strength has grown to such a powerful level. God bless us. The 100 races fell into a commotion with Tai Ta's appearance. They all emotionally cried out in joy. Some of the older people had even teared up and became filled with inextricable joy. Not only was the War God the God that the 100 races believed in, but he was also their religion. He was their soul. Tai Ta slaughtered all the Saint Emperors around him as he made his way toward the 100 races. When he had absorbed a droplet of Ergin's blood, he had received a fragment of his memories as well. He knew that the 100 races were his people since he was the War God. In this current age, the 100 races did not possess any astounding experts. They suffered extremely heavy casualties and several of their forbidden artifacts had been shattered as well, including the Heaven's Guard of the dwarves. The situation was rather pessimistic for them. He wanted to go over and help them, to become their shield and sword to stop the enemy. At this moment, the clear resonance of a sword rang out from the depths of the tunnel. The sound was not loud, but it was sharp, enough to drown out all the other sounds of the battlefield. Even the heavenly enchantress music was suppressed. The heavenly enchantress stopped playing as she placed her slender fingers on the strings of the zither. She sternly stared into the depths of the tunnel. Jian Shen was taken aback as well. He pulled back his sword and hovered in the rippling space as he stared into the depths of the tunnel. He finally became stern as some obvious shock surfaced. His soul had actually shuddered from the resonance of the sword. At that moment, he understood many things. He learned that an extremely terrifying opponent was about to arrive and also knew that this opponent had comprehended the way of the sword. This opponent's progress was even greater than his. Minor achievement of sword origin, almost major achievement. Master, this person is very powerful. Be careful. The sword spirits very sternly informed Jian Chen. Jian Chen shivered inside. He knew that among the 5 major realms of the sword, each realm was divided into the initial basics, minor achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. He had only attained the initial basics of sword origin while his opponent had already reached minor achievement and was about to attain major achievement. He would be an extremely powerful opponent. Chapter 1385, Battle in the Tunnel. At the same time, Xiaoling stopped her slaughter and arrived before Jian Chen in a flash. She fearfully stared into the depths of the tunnel as she nervously clung to Jian Chen's arm. She said with fear, "Oh no, big brother, that big baddie is coming over as well." Xiaoling had faced the Spirit King back when the seal had still been intact. His power had greatly shocked Xiaoling's tender soul, leaving behind a permanent shadow in her heart. It was something that she could not overcome, and now that she was about to face the owner of the shadow, Xiaoling experienced indescribably terror. "Xiaoling, don't be afraid. I'm here," Jian Chen comforted, but he felt no confidence inside. He had never seen the powerful opponent before, but it caused him to feel a great pressure. Even Jian Chen was not confident he would end up victorious. Xiaoling gave out a gentle interjection of agreement and firmly nodded. However, her grasp on Jian Chen's arm tightened. Clearly she was extremely nervous inside. The Saint Emperors from the foreign world heard the thrum of the sword from the depths of the tunnel as well and immediately became excited. They understood the power of the Spirit King extremely well. He was definitely the most powerful Spirit King their world had ever seen. The legend regarding the current Spirit King had already spread through the world of Forsaken Saints long ago. He had become a tale in the current world because he was able to slay a mid-reciprocity Spirit King within 10 attacks despite having just reached reciprocity. He had forged his own glorious legend. After that, the two other former Spirit Kings fought with him for 4 whole hours as mid and late reciprocity experts. In the end, both of them were slain by the current Spirit King, creating a story that he was invincible, which then spread throughout the entire world. He had carved his name into history. Even though the Spirit King had only sent his sword over this time and the Tian Yuan continent only had 2 or 3 Origin Realm experts, the foreign Saint Emperors still believed that they were no match for the Spirit King's sword. After all, the Spirit King's sword was dyed with the blood of 3 reciprocity experts. Xiao Jin stared at the depths of the tunnel as well. He pouted as he curiously observed it. Xiao Jin, stay behind and project them. You must keep them safe, Jian Shen said to Xiao Jin through a communication technique. He worried about Changyang Zhu Xiao and the others, so he had always left Xiao Jin by their sides. However, he only got Xiao Jin to protect them, along with Hao Wu, the heavenly enchantress, a few elders of Mercenary City, and the few experts he was friends with. Afterward, Jian Shen glanced in Tai Ta's direction before pulling Xiao Ling with him into the tunnel. Streams of energy shot out from the tunnel beneath the ground from time to time and into the sky. The energy was so powerful that it was enough to kill Saint Kings instantaneously. Even Saint Emperors could end up heavily injured if they were not careful. Jian Shen and Xiao Ling headed toward the other side of the tunnel. As soon as streams of energy rushed over, they would be stopped by Xiao Ling with a wave of her hand without requiring Jian Shen to do anything at all. The energy streams were lethal to Saint Kings, but they were no threat to Xiao Ling. The tunnel was very unstable. The space in there kept warping, distorting the surroundings. It seemed like chaos, making it impossible to see the other side. However, a black metal sword could vaguely be seen slowly floating through the tunnel. The power of the sword was just far too great. Even though its glow was hidden, suppressed in an attempt to appear ordinary, the space would shatter fragment by fragment wherever it passed. The space would be reduced to nothingness, alternating between chaos and darkness. Jian Shen stood before the tunnel with the Ziying sword. He glared at the barely visible sword in the tunnel before suddenly erupting with sword chi. The sword chi was so powerful that it could temporarily suppress the chaotic streams of energy in the tunnel. Afterward, the sword chi rushed into the air above in a visible form, lingering there like a sword. Jian Shen seemed to have become a divine sword. He glowed with blinding a white light as endless sword chi radiated out into the surroundings. He had pushed his comprehension of the way of the sword to the limits. With a wave of the Ziying sword, he immediately shot a huge, 30-meter-long sword chi into the tunnel. It flickered with a violet light, which was both dazzling and resplendent, shooting toward the metal sword in the tunnel. The tunnel and space violently trembled as soon as the Ziying sword entered it. The already unstable space was about to shatter. Jian Shen could tell with a single glance that it was very difficult for the space to endure the energy from Saint Emperors. The black swords might clearly surpass the limits of the tunnel, so even though it did all it could to suppress its power, it still endured great hardships as it advanced through the tunnel. As soon as the tunnel collapsed, the outcome would be unthinkable. What he needed to do was force the black sword back before it arrived on the Tian Yuan continent or destroy the tunnel. The black sword had discovered the danger ahead. With a slight tremor, it produced a deep thrum. The sound struck Jian Shen's sword chi as a sound wave. Although it was unable to stop the sword chi, it was enough to slightly weaken it. The metal sword then shone with a dim, dark glow before suddenly increasing its speed, shooting forward like a loose arrow. Boom! The metal sword continued to suppress its presence. It collided with the violet sword chi, using the toughness of the blade to fend off the sword chi. Because the tunnel was very unstable, Jian Shen's sword chi caused the tunnel to reach the brink of shattering. The black, metal sword was unable to erupt with power since its power would only hasten the collapse. The terrifying pulses of energy from the collision of the sword and sword chi caused the tunnel to tremble even more violently. Part of the surroundings had already collapsed, and the tunnel seemed like it was about to fall apart. The metal sword paused slightly before continuing on. It left the most unstable region before shining with a faint, dark glow. It moved faster and faster as if it wanted to leave the tunnel as soon as possible. Jian Chen's eyes shone with a resplendent light. He released his grip on the Ziying sword and began to control it with his soul. The Ziying sword immediately shot into the tunnel as a violet stream of light, engaging in a battle with the metal sword. There was no one directly controlling the metal sword, but it possessed a fragment of the Spirit King's soul. It was able to use all the accumulated experience and battle techniques of the Spirit King while engaging in an intense battle against the Ziying sword within the tunnel. The ringing sounds of collisions constantly rang out as terrifying energy wreaked havoc upon the tunnel. In just a short moment, the walls of the tunnel cracked before partially collapsing. The damage was even more severe than before. Chapter 1386. More Origin Realm Experts. The black, metal sword was something extraordinary, equivalent to the Ziying sword. Not only did it avoid falling into a disadvantage against the Ziying sword, but it also fought freely. However, after the tunnel became riddled with server cracks, the metal sword no longer bothered to deal with the Ziying sword. It rapidly approached the exit of the tunnel as it fended off the Ziying sword's attacks. Jian Shen recalled the Ziying sword after seeing how it was unable to do anything to the black sword. He used a sword technique he had learned from the sword spirits and shot out 3 powerful sword chi, condensing a trapping formation to stop the black sword. Afterward, he constantly swung his sword, sending out strands of powerful sword chi toward the cracked and collapsing tunnel, causing the cracks to widen. He wanted to destroy the tunnel. At the same time, Xiaoling struck out as well. She copied Jian Chen and attacked the tunnel with as many powerful attacks as she could. As long as the tunnel was destroyed, they could temporarily stop the invasion of the foreign world. The tunnel began to collapse on a large scale after enduring the attacks from the two of them. The space in the tunnel distorted as thick cracks constantly appeared. It had become severely shattered. However, the tunnel was far tougher than Jian Chen had imagined it to be. It had cracked and shattered, yet it remained intact due to a mysterious force. They were unable to completely destroy it. At the same time, the black, metal sword finally displayed its might. An extremely powerful energy erupted from within the sword, immediately tearing Jian Chen's formation to shreds. It shot toward the exit of the tunnel in a flash of black light while the space within a dozen meters from it was reduced to darkness. The darkness would linger for quite some time. The tunnel cracked even more from the extreme power of the black sword. A segment of it had even fallen apart, but an energy continued to hold the two sides together. The black sword understood that the tunnel would not collapse, so it ignored the damage and erupted with its greatest power, charging forward as quickly as it could. In a single moment, the sword traversed the last portion of its journey and arrived at the entrance. It then stabbed at Jian Chen without slowing down at all. Jian Chen became stern as he immediately placed the Ziying sword in front of him. Ding! The sharp tip of the metal sword clashed with the Ziying sword with an extremely great force, producing an abnormal metallic ring. Powerful pulses of energy erupted from underground, causing magma to be thrown into the air in huge waves. The tip of the metal sword remained stuck to the Ziying sword. It burst forth with all its might, charging out of the tunnel with Jian Chen. It transformed into a black speck in the blink of an eye and disappeared into the sky. Big brother. Xiaoling produced a cry of surprise as she tailed them. She disappeared into the sky as well. The battle beneath continued. Although Jian Chen was now gone, there was Tai Ta, so the Tian Yuan continent had not weakened at all. However, the rate of casualties among the 4 races had not decreased. 2/3 of the Saint Kings had already passed away. Although Tai Ta had slain many, there was still over 100 foreign Saint Emperors. Kaiser, Lankyros, and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires had fled the battlefield due to the heavy injuries that they had sustained. Sanxiong was the only remaining Saint Emperor of the magical beasts, dealing with the foreign Saint Emperors by utilizing his ability to move the fastest in the world. However, he dared not to face them openly. The sea race had suffered extreme casualties as well. Less than half of the people they had brought were left. The Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall was currently engaged in a battle against several Saint Emperors with a trident. She was covered in blood, both hers and her opponents. She was extremely heavily injured. Atlantis was no longer present on the battlefield. She had suffered very severe injuries and had almost passed away. She had been saved by Yadrium in a final moment and had been sent into a divine hall that she carried along her side. At this moment, two streams of light shot through the sky from afar. They entered the battlefield with great force, piercing the heads of two Saint Emperors and wiping out their souls as soon as they arrived. It's our clan's Emperor armament. The ancestor is our reinforcement. The great elders of the Tyrant's Blade School and Changyang clan were reinvigorated, because the two streams of light were the wave-breaking blade of the Tyrant's Blade School and the righteous Yang sword of the Changyang clan. The two weapons had killed their way into the battlefield and gave off a presence that caused the Saint Emperors to shiver inside. The two weapons were not as powerful as the Azulite sword or the black, metal sword, but they could easily deal with Saint Emperors. The foreign Saint Emperors were not the weapon's opponents at all when only one of them was fighting at a time. They would end up slain within 10 attacks. Even the combined attacks of several Saint Emperors were only enough to reach a stalemate against the two weapons. God damn it, these are weapons of Origin Realm experts. I never thought that there would be more Origin Realm experts here. That's impossible. There is no origin energy here and the energy of the world is so thin. It's impossible for so many Origin Realm experts to appear. Just the existence of one or two of them is a miracle. No, there's something wrong with the two weapons. They seem to have been heavily damaged in the past, falling from the grade of saint artifacts. The Saint Emperors of the foreign world all cried out, but soon a person discovered the flaws of the weapons and pointed them out. This was because the world of Forsaken Saints had always been in possession of Origin Realm experts, so many Saint Emperors from the foreign world had an extremely deep understanding of that realm of cultivation. The knowledge they possessed was incomparable to the people of the Tian Yuan continent. After all, the world only had 4 Origin Realm champions in the past. Even 1,000,000 years ago, records of Origin Realm experts were rare existences. The temperature in outer space was extremely low. So cold, in fact, that even Earth Saint Masters would not be able to survive. A huge, white planet loomed to one side while the vast cosmos dominated the other. There was no gravity theorem nor any sense of direction. It was impossible to distinguish which way was left, right, up, or down, and the energy of the world was absent as well. Even Saint Emperors would not be able to replenish the saint force they consumed in outer space. Jian Shen currently wielded the Ziying sword as he hovered in a ball of blinding white light. His presence was as vast as the sea while his battle intent roared within him. He stood there like a drawn sword. Xiao Ling stood near Jian Shen. She nervously stared at an area right in front of her. Some fear was present on her face, but it was also filled with an awareness and was full of vigilance, as if she was about to face a powerful opponent. The black, metal sword hovered silently right before them. It churned with light, which pierced into the surrounding space and caused it to warp. A dense, dark light was emitted from the sword, rapidly condensing into a human-sized figure. The light created a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. He stood tall and straight, and the presence he emitted was like a mountain, calm and steady. He stood there with his arms crossed, as if he had fused with the surroundings. He gave off the feeling that the world was beneath him. Chapter 1387, Battle in Outer Space. 1. The middle-aged man looked at Jian Shen and Xiao Ling. He had appeared with a neutral face and profound eyes, but the moment he saw Jian Shen, a sliver of surprise flashed through the depths of his eyes. He had never thought that there would be another Origin Realm expert other than Xiao Ling, let alone imagine that this expert would have entered the way of the sword. Even in the world of Forsaken Saints, there were countless people who used the sword and plenty who had reached the Origin Realm, but without any exception, none of them had entered the way of the sword. Not to mention, the person who had comprehended the way of the sword originated from a world where there was no origin energy and where there were barely any Origin Realm experts. Afterward, the middle-aged man looked at the huge planet beneath him. He became fixated in the direction of the Tianyuan continent and immediately frowned. He said with a low voice, "I've underestimated the strength on your side." "Who are you?" Jian Chen growled. He could tell that the person before him had not actually come and was only a projection of his soul and power, but the pressure this person let out was still vast. If he had actually personally come, just how terrifying of an opponent would he be? "You can refer to me as the Spirit King," the man replied indifferently. Jian Chen shuddered inside. He said, "Spirit King, you really are the ruler of the foreign world. However, this place does not belong to your world. It's not a place that you should set foot upon. I must come here." "No one can stop me," the Spirit King replied very leisurely, but he still possessed a determined will. Jian Chen's eyes grew colder. Even though his opponent's strength was rather frightening, there was no need for him to fear it since he had not come personally. Jian Chen said coldly, "We can only fight it out if that's the case." Jian Chen tightly grasped the Ziying sword and condensed shocking a sword chi around him, enveloping himself in a blinding white light. The region of space around him violently shook, while the Ziying sword erupted with a glow it had never shown before. It produced terrifying pulses of energy before seemingly fusing with Jian Chen. Together, they stabbed at the Spirit King in a flash of violet light. Jian Chen did not hold back. This attack contained all his power. He had pushed his fourth layer chaotic force and his comprehension of the way of the sword to the limits. The chaotic force's power had been amplified several times through the Ziying sword and the sword chi, causing his attack to surpass the level of Saint Emperors and reach the origin realm. The violet light tore through the sky and caused the space around it to shatter, carving out a chasm several hundred meters long and over 10 meters wide. Jian Chen's attack was just too powerful. It was powerful enough to carve away a section of the continent if it was used on the Tianyuan continent. The Spirit King remained where he was without moving. He was calm and composed, brimming with confidence. His tall stature seemed extremely large, enough to shoulder an entire world by himself. He grasped the Cloudstream sword in his right hand. It flickered with a dark light as an extremely powerful energy remained hidden within. Afterward, he used the most basic attack, a simple thrust, to receive the Ziying sword. This was the most ordinary attack one could perform with a sword, but it possessed an extraordinary force in the hands of the Spirit King. The simple thrust seemed to contain an ultimate ability. It was not as simple as it seemed. It contained a world and universe within. Boom! The tips of the two swords collided violently and immediately produced a deafening boom. Powerful ripples of energy swept into the surroundings as storms, causing the space to shudder and the stars to darken. The Ziying sword came to a halt and revealed Jian Chen. He was bathed in the light from the sword, as if he had fused with it. The two swords did not separate and remained locked in a stalemate in space. Vast energy leaked out from the two swords as they attempted to surpass each other. With the clashing of energy, the space around them began to collapse. A black hole started to appear where the two tips touched, rapidly expanding in size. The ripples of energy emitted vanished into the hole as well. Jian Chen and the Spirit King remained locked like this. The Spirit King had reached the origin realm, but he was not truly present this time. He had only deposited some power within the Cloudstream sword, so he was unable to unleash all his power. At this moment, Xiaoling moved as well. She suppressed her fear and silently arrived behind the Spirit King. She raised her little fist and viciously threw it toward him. As soon as the punch was thrown, the surrounding space collapsed. Her punch was just too powerful, even overshadowing Jian Chen's attack. The Spirit King did not become flustered at all. Within a moment, a powerful strand of sword chi condensed in his left hand. It shone with a dazzling white light, which illuminated the surroundings. This was sword chi he had condensed using his understanding of the way of the sword. It was not just energy, but a condensation of laws as well. It was even more powerful than Jian Chen's sword chi. Without even looking back, the Spirit King swung the sword chi toward his back, forcing Xiaoling to pull back her punch and stop the attack. Bang! The The sword chi vanished with a dull sound. Xiaoling managed to block the attack, but she was blown several kilometers away. So powerful. Xiaoling commented. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had already reached returnance and the Spirit King was not personally present, yet just a clone condensed from energy was enough to force her back. Break through. The Spirit King exhaled gently, and with a jolt of his arm, a powerful force immediately erupted from his sword. It broke the balance it had maintained with the Ziying sword and suppressed Jian Chen in a single moment, blowing him far away. Jian Chen became extremely stern. The power of the Spirit King had greatly exceeded what he had anticipated. He had never thought that a single clone would be so powerful. Jian Chen regained his footing far away and formed seals with his hands. He quickly formed several complicated seals before crying out, "Sky-severing strike." At that moment, the Ziying sword became 100 meters long. Its violet sword chi erupted as it cleaved toward the Spirit King. This was one of the sword techniques Jian Chen had learned from the sword spirits. Although it was a part of the basics in the eyes of the sword spirits, Jian Chen was able to erupt with power he did not possess when he used it. It was akin to saint rulers using saint-tier battle skills to heavily injure saint kings. However, the sword technique was far more powerful than saint-tier battle skills. The Spirit King narrowed his eyes. The attack had locked onto his presence, preventing him from dodging. He could only take it on forcefully, but as the Ziying sword approached him, he felt like he was trapped by a mysterious power, as if his body was as heavy as a mountain. "This is a sword domain," the Spirit King murmured. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, but he did not show any fear at all. Instead, his battle intent surged and he yelled out, "Break, domain." The cloud stream sword did not erupted with much force. With just a dull flash, it was thrust into space, immediately dispersing the mysterious force around him. "Break, sword." The Spirit King called out this time and the cloud stream sword charged toward the huge Ziying sword. A wondrous energy circulated within the cloud stream sword as it came in contact with the Ziying sword. Ding! With a crisp sound, the power of Jian Chen's sky-severing strike vanished like a deflating balloon. It rapidly weakened before the Ziying sword returned to its original form and returned to Jian Chen's hand. Chapter 1388, Battle in Outer Space, 2, Jian Chen was shocked inside. The sword technique he had just used originated from the Azulite sword spirits. Even though it was only one of the basics, it still originated from the immortals' world. The power of the technique was unimaginably great, yet it had fallen apart so easily before the Spiritiking. He found it difficult to believe. It would have been acceptable if the Spirit King was actually present and had easily broken through the sword technique then, but all that was present was a strand of soul and some energy the Spirit King had deposited into his sword. The Spirit King's comprehension of the way of the sword is greater than mine. Can he easily stop my sword techniques with just his advantage in the way of the sword? Jian Chen thought about it quickly, but his hands never stopped. He swung the Ziying sword and used a second sword technique, sending 3 sword chi toward the Spirit King with a flash. The 3 sword chi did not attack the Spirit King directly. They instead shot into his surroundings and created a formation, trapping him in a triangle. Each strand of sword chi was 2 meters long and let out a blinding light. The 3 strands of sword chi resonated with one another as they fused their power to seal off the region. Jian Chen's presence skyrocketed. He arrived above the Spirit King in a flash, and at the same time, the Qing Suo sword arrived beneath the Spirit King in a flash of azure light through the control of his mind. Afterward, both swords stabbed toward the Spirit King from above and below. 2 streams of light, one violet and one azure, shot through space with unbelievable speed. If the Spirit King wasn't in between them, it seemed like the 2 swords were about to collide. Break, formation. The Spirit King's face remained the same as before. He gave a deep grunt before the cloud stream sword stabbed into empty space, immediately striking Jian Chen's formation with a mysterious power. With a boom, the 3 sword chi were easily smashed. Afterward, the Spirit King shot up as he moved toward Jian Chen with a terrifying presence. The Qing Suo sword erupted with azure light from beneath the Spirit King. It transformed into an azure streak as it shot up, attempting a pincer attack on the Spirit King with the Ziying sword. It vaguely radiated with supreme Yin Qi, while the Ziying sword above vaguely radiated with supreme Yang Qi as well. This was the Yin and Yang Qi created from chaotic force when the world began. This was the power of the sword spirits. Although the sword spirits sustained great injuries and their Yin Qi and Yang Qi had become extremely weak, they were still able to erupt with unbelievable force if their supreme Yin and Yang Qi came together. As soon as the Spirit King came in contact with the Ziying sword, he sensed the sliver of supreme Yang Qi hidden within. His heart immediately tightened, and without any hesitation, he came to a halt before reappearing 1,000 meters away in just a single movement. As soon as the Spirit King vanished, the resplendent light of the two swords overlapped with one another. However, the two swords remained separate, coming no closer than 3 inches, while the supreme Yin and Yang Qi erupted with a destructive ripple of energy. 9 godly arts, Slayer. Xiao Ling became stern in the distance. She used the supreme techniques that Mo Tianyun had left behind, the 9 godly arts. Her hands turned into claws as terrifying energy condensed around them. She then swept them in front of her. The region of space around her trembled before collapsing. An extremely powerful force of slaughter shot toward the Spirit King as a crescent and caused space to collapse along the way. The killing intent unleashed was enough to annihilate worlds, enough to affect the souls of people. Just the terrifying killing intent from the force of slaughter was enough to disperse the souls of weaker people. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He had seen countless saint-tier battle skills, but the 9 godly arts completely surpassed the realm of a battle skill. He had already determined that the 9 godly arts were not weaker than the sword techniques he had learned from the azulate sword spirits from the might this one attack displayed. It could even be more powerful. Saint-tier battle skills were only suitable for saint rulers and saint emperors. The effects would not be very evident when used by saint emperors, yet the 9 godly arts were still able to demonstrate such a great impact when cast by a returnance expert. This could only be explained by the fact that the 9 godly arts were of an extremely high grade. The Spirit King's indifferent eyes brimmed with interest. He became fixated on the force of slaughter that was wreaking havoc. He actually felt like he could not dodge the attack, as if it would catch up to him if he tried to move. The Spirit King raised his cloud-stream sword and endless white light condensed from the surrounding space. The sword became a streak of white light before surging out as an afterimage. He struck the force of slaughter with the sword. Boom! The force of slaughter was dispersed by his sword, but the Spirit King was blown far away. His figure had become somewhat blurry. The Spirit King tossed out his sword as he shot back. The cloud-stream sword shot toward Xiao Ling while flickering with a dark light. The sword was like a venomous snake hidden within the darkness of space. With a thought, Jian Shen controlled his 2 swords with his soul and directed them toward the cloud-stream sword. His swords managed to stop it while he used the illusory flash to shoot toward the Spirit King. He condensed a sword from Sword Qi in his right hand and stabbed it toward the Spirit King. 9 godly arts, World Lock. Just when the Spirit King wanted to deal with his opponent in a similar fashion, Xiao Ling used the 9 godly arts again. She froze the entire region in a single moment, catching the Spirit King off guard and immobilizing him. The power of the 9 godly arts was incomparable to the basic sword techniques Jian Chen knew. They were even more powerful since they were being used by Xiao Ling, a returnance expert. Unless the Spirit King was personally present, his clone would not be able to break free in a single moment. Jian Chen's sword Qi punctured the Spirit King's body, but no blood appeared. His body became more ethereal since his figure, which was condensed from a strand of soul and some energy, rapidly weakened. The Spirit King remained composed despite being hit by such a heavy attack. He maintained the same expression as his surroundings became flooded with an endless white light. The light transformed into countless swords that attacked the surroundings, allowing him to break free from Xiao Ling's technique. He extended his right index finger and shot a sword Qi into Jian Chen's chest. Unlike the Spirit King, Jian Chen's body was composed of flesh. He grunted as he shot back in a flash. The sword chi from the Spirit King wreaked havoc within him. It was like a snake, turning both his blood and organs to mush wherever it went. The sword chi in Jian Chen was a condensation of laws even more powerful than the sword chi he could use himself. He dared not to deal with it carelessly. He immediately directed his chaotic force to surround the sword chi before using his comprehension of the way of the sword to destroy it. At the same time, the Spirit King experienced what Jian Chen was going through as well. Jian Chen had also managed to deposit a strand of sword chi in the Spirit King's clone, but the Spirit King possessed a greater understanding of the way of the sword, so he dispersed it very quickly. Big brother. Xiao Ling immediately began to panic when she saw that Jian Chen was injured. Her face was filled with worry. However, she knew how to help Jian Chen. She needed to defeat the Spirit King, so she immediately dismissed her thoughts and formed a seal with her hands. She used the 9 godly arts again. 9 godly arts, descent of the divine beast. A huge white tiger condensed behind Xiao Ling. It stood there majestically, almost like a divine god had descended. It produced a roar before leaping forward. It seemed to pass through the fabric of space, ignoring the distance between the two of them and arriving before the Spirit King as if it had teleported. It swung one of its paws at the Spirit King with terrifying force. The attack contained the force of slaughter as well. It was filled with killing intent. The Spirit King became rather stern for the first time. His presence skyrocketed as he recalled the Cloud Stream sword. He pushed his minor achievement understanding of sword origin to the maximum as he swung the Cloud Stream sword toward the white tiger with a blinding light. Chapter 1389, Battle in Outer Space, 3. The white tiger's figure dulled after enduring the Spirit King's attack, but its claws still passed through the Spirit King's body along with a powerful force of slaughter. It caused the Spirit King's body to distort, changing from human form to a cluster of dense and powerful energy. However, the Spirit King's soul was still present. Under his soul's control, he morphed back into human form in basically a single moment. However, he had become more ethereal. His power had been rapidly consumed by the white tiger's claw. The white tiger did not disperse. Instead it remained with its same majestic presence. Even though its figure had dulled after taking an attack from the Spirit King, it still radiated with a terrifying presence. Its claw shot toward the Spirit King once again with force of slaughter, which obliterated the surrounding space. The Spirit King was just far too powerful, and he had attained minor achievement in sword origin. His strength surpassed others who possessed a similar cultivation level as him, so his clone was no weaker than a returnance expert. He did not hold back at all in his second clash with the white tiger, pushing his body to the limits. The white tiger finally dispersed after withstanding 2 attacks, but the Spirit King was heavily injured as well. His body of energy had become extremely faint, but he still behaved as though he was invincible. His presence had not weakened at all. The Cloud Stream sword in his hand had dulled as well. Most of the power deposited within the sword had been consumed during the clashes. It was impossible for the power to be replenished either, as the Spirit King was not actually present. At this moment, Jian Chen dispersed the sword chi within him as well. Blood ran down from the corner of his lips and his face was rather pale. He could obviously see the Spirit King's condition as well, so he immediately charged forward again regardless of his wounds. He wanted to waste all the energy of the Spirit King's clone as soon as possible. Xiao Ling attacked as well, fighting the Spirit King alongside Jian Chen. She used the 9 godly arts many times. It would demonstrate wondrous powers each time she used it. There were both offensive and auxiliary abilities, which all possessed force of slaughter. Toward the end of her barrage, all the abilities conjured the figure of a white tiger and grew in power. The battle in outer space was extremely intense. They had fought to the point where the surrounding space shattered and the stars in the distance seemed to darken. The Spirit King's figure became weaker and weaker before entering the Cloud Stream sword altogether. He fused with the sword, controlling it in battle. Jian Chen was extremely heavily injured as well. A few vicious gashes were present on him as well as several holes that went through his body. His clothes were dyed red with blood and every wound he possessed flashed with sword chi, preventing them from closing up. Suddenly, a dazzling, blue light shot into outer space with a flash from the planet below. It radiated with an extremely tremendous presence, causing the surrounding space to thicken. The sea goddess had joined the battle as well. She was surrounded with a dense, water-attributed energy that gave off terrifying pulses of power. Her appearance was obscured. The sea goddess had immediately entered seclusion for recuperation as soon as her resurrection was complete. She had only recovered her strength now, returning to her peak condition. The sea goddess hurled a trident at the cloud stream sword. It was covered with a ball of powerful blue flames and a terrifying presence, immediately producing a deafening boom when it collided with the sword. The space around the two weapons collapsed completely. The trident flew back into the sea goddess' hands after the light it gave off had dulled. Afterward, she charged up with the trident, approaching the cloud stream sword with a terrifying presence and engaged in a great battle with it. At the same time, Jian Chen and Xiao Ling moved as well. Jian Chen's Ziying sword let out a violet, gray, and white light as he swung it at the cloud stream sword as hard as he could. With the screech of metal, the dull cloud stream sword was knocked several dozen kilometers away. A powerful force of slaughter turned the space there to shards through a supreme killing intent. The Ziying sword struck the cloud stream sword, causing the sword to quiver slightly. The Spirit King's power was mostly consumed, and he would not be able to last much longer. Coupled with the sea goddess, there was one more powerful opponent that he had to face, so he fell into a disadvantage immediately. He was forced to retreat against the three of them. Today is the first time I have suffered defeat in a battle against opponents of a similar cultivation level. This is an extremely painful lesson. I will never forget this defeat. I never thought your world had more than one origin realm expert. I have underestimated your strength, thus, leading to the wrong decision and the defeat today. However, you will still not be able to stop our advance. That day will come soon. The Spirit King's lively voice rang from his sword. His sword then shot off as a gray streak of light. He shot toward the Tianyuan continent, leaving through the tunnel. Jian Chen, Xiao Ling, and the sea goddess did not try to stop him. The Spirit King was just far too powerful. Even though he had only sent a sword and a clone, the three of them still did not possess the power to stop him from leaving. Oof, so powerful, that person is so strong. I've even used the strongest abilities Master has left behind, but there's still not enough to kill him. He has managed to escape in the end. Xiao Ling exhaled deeply and patted her own chest. She let out a sigh of relief. Afterward, she arrived by Jian Chen's side in a flash, and after seeing how bloodied he had become, she immediately began to tear up. She choked back her tears as she said, "Big brother, you're injured and you've bled so much." Jian Chen smiled victoriously and rubbed her head. He said, "I'm fine. They're just some small injuries. They're nothing to me. They'll heal very soon." Jian Chen became coated in a layer of dense and gentle white light as soon as he finished his sentence. His wounds began to close up at a visible rate under the glow of the white light. Jian Chen was a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. This time, he was using a strand of Radiant Saint Force origin energy without holding back. Coupled with the great recovery rate of his chaotic body, he healed unbelievably quickly. The Spirit King had left, but the battle on the Tianyuan continent had not ended yet. He needed to recover as soon as possible so that he could enter the battlefield again and reduce the casualties on his side. After fully recovering, Jian Chen discovered that the sea goddess had already left outer space. She had gone to take part in the battle below. Only Xiao Ling remained by his side, staring at him with her large eyes. "Xiao Ling, let's go," Jian Chen said before returning to the Tianyuan continent with her. With the interference of 3 origin realm experts, the remaining saint emperors from the foreign world were all slain. Even though a few of them decided to flee in a random direction, they still ended up dead after being pursued by an origin realm expert. Chapter 1390, Heavy Losses. The battle ended very soon. This unprecedented battle that spanned 2 worlds did not last for very long, but its effects were without a doubt immense. The battle had shaken the entire world and was destined to go down in history. Even the war between the humans, magical beasts, and 100 races had not reached such intensity. The Tianyuan continent was very heavily destroyed as an aftermath of the battle. A bottomless pit spanned several thousand kilometers from Mercenary City, emitting waves of heat in the darkness. The heat caused the temperature in the region to skyrocket. This was due to the magma below the earth. However, the churning molten rock was not visible since the pit was just too deep. The ruins of Mercenary City had completely vanished long ago in the battle. Most of the structures of the city had fallen into the depths of the magma. There was a region of space in the very center of the pit that contained extraordinary energy fluctuations. This was the tunnel leading to the world of Forsaken Saints. It had not been destroyed. The tunnel seemed very fragile, but it was virtually indestructible. Even if a portion of it had cracked and collapsed, it would slowly mend itself. The people of the 4 races lingered in the sky after surviving the battle. Many of them were covered in blood, not just from themselves but from their enemies as well. There were a few Saint Kings who had lost limbs and parts of their bodies during the battle, making them a brutal sight. Very few people still maintained a whole body. We're victorious. We've slain the several hundred invading Saint Emperors and successfully protected our world, a few Saint Kings constantly exclaimed. Their voices were filled with the joy of victory and obvious triumph. All the people who had survived revealed a smile of victory. They all smiled and felt triumphant from the bottom of their hearts. They only had a few Saint Emperors on their sides with the 4 races combined, yet they had faced several hundred Saint Emperors. The disparity in strength was just unbelievable. Under such a situation where the odds were against them, they still managed to achieve victory in the end. This had surprised all of them. However, their joy vanished slowly when they saw the people scattered throughout the sky. Their feelings grew heavy. Less than a quarter of all the people from the 4 races were left at the end of the battle. The others had all fallen, departing from the world forever. Basically all the people there were Saint Kings, barely any Saint Rulers. Experts of such a level were existences that stood on the apex among all the races. It was rather difficult for them to endure such a huge loss in such a short amount of time. All 4 races had suffered heavy casualties from the battle. Other than Yadrium and Sangxiong, all the other Saint Emperors had fled before the battle had ended since they had become too heavily injured. We're victorious this time, all because of Jian Qin. Over 100 of those foreign Saint Emperors died to his hands, the Grand Elder of Mercenary City said with a sorrowful voice. Mercenary City had suffered severe losses from the battle. There were only 3 Saint Kings left, the rest were dead. All of their remains had fallen into the pit and had been dissolved by the magma. All the people concentrated their attention on Jian Qin. The experts of the Tianyuan continent and Beast God continent all revealed rather mixed in expression. The experts of the 2 continents possessed an extremely clear understanding of Jian Qin. He was not an old monster who had cultivated for thousands of years. He was a junior who was not even 100 years old, only having cultivated for a few decades. Yet, it was him who had left them in the dust and reached a whole different level of power, slaying Saint Emperors like ants. Mentally, they were greatly affected by this fact. Is Jian Qin really an incarnation of Mo Tianyun? At this moment, similar thoughts crossed the minds of both the humans and magical beasts. Afterward, a few people looked away from Jian Qin and then at Xiao Jin, Tai Ta, and the sea goddess. Quite a few people had caught a glimpse of Xiao Jin and Tai Ta's performance during the battle, shocking most of them. The only person they had not seen was the sea goddess. Although she was shrouded by a screen of dense blue light, obscuring her appearance, the tremendous presence and water-attributed energy she gave off explained everything. Yadrium greets your majesty. Yadrium arrived before the sea goddess and dropped to one knee as she gave a courteous greeting. You're very heavily injured. Go back and heal, the sea goddess nonchalantly commanded. Yes, your majesty. Yadrium rose up and glanced back at the heavily injured experts of the sea race. Afterward, she took a group of particularly injured people with her and immediately returned to the sea realm, only leaving a few not-so-wounded people to keep guard. On the side of the 100 Races, all the people there had already knelt down, greeting the war god in the most courteous manner. All of them were extremely excited. Even though they had suffered heavy losses as well, the return of the war god had dulled their sorrows. The war god was their soul. He was their pillar of support and where all their faith lay. On the side of the magical beasts, the remaining experts all showed very ugly expressions. The return of the war god was bad news for them. The golden light around Tai Ta slowly dimmed as he began striding away. He walked toward Jian Chen. Tai Ta's actions attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes became fixated on him. Even ignoring the fact that he was the war god, just the strength he had displayed had made him the center of attention. Many people held their breaths. Most did not know the relationship between Jian Chen and Tai Ta. In ancient times, the war god of the 100 Races, Ergens, attacked the Tianyuan continent and forced them to retreat. In the end, Mo Tianyun suddenly appeared and stopped him, slaying countless experts of the 100 Races all by himself. If that had not happened, the Tianyuan continent probably would have been dominated by a whole different race right now. Now that the war god has reappeared and Jian Chen has vaguely taken up the mantle as the strongest human, are they going to continue the war from ancient times? Some person thought inside. Chapter 1391, Tai Ta's departure. All the people present had already begun wondering whether Jian Chen and Tai Ta were going to end up fighting or not. Tai Ta had already arrived before Jian Chen and the golden axe in his hand slowly vanished. At that moment, he seemed to have turned into an ordinary man from the raging war god state he had been in before. He seemed no different from any person aside from his golden skin. After breaking through, Tai Ta could erupt with the power to destroy worlds, but he was able to return to how he was before whenever he wanted to. Jian Chen, I want to go to the wasteland continent of the 100 Races, Tai Ta said with his soft but heavy voice. His eyes shone with interest. When he had obtained a portion of Ergens' memory from the golden drop of blood on Dragon Island, he had been filled with a burning desire to visit the wasteland continent one day, because he felt like only that place belonged to him from the bottom of his heart. Before, he had been too weak. If he had been exposed, the 100 Races would not have been able to save him even if they mobilized all their forces, because not only would the magical beasts come to kill him, but so would the experts of the Tianyuan continent. The situation now was different. His strength had already reached a level where he could look down on the entire world. No one could defeat him as long as another Origin Realm expert did not appear. Go. I'll come look for you once I deal with the matters on the Tianyuan continent, Jian Chen replied calmly, but he felt slightly worried inside. He could already tell that a large portion of the magical beasts and the 100 Races still clung on to their former enmities. Tai Ta now represented the 100 Races and the White Tiger would end up as the representative of the magical beasts in the future. What he hated to see the most was the White Tiger standing up to Tai Ta as an enemy one day. Tai Ta left after calling all the experts of the 100 Races with him. He returned to the wasteland continent. Although there was less than a third of the people initially present, all the people of the 100 Races were filled with joy. The Heaven's Guard that had been passed down from ancient times among the dwarves had shattered. The dwarven experts took the shards back to the continent with them, and the elven god tree had vanished as well, having been taken away by the elves. However, the elven god tree did not change much after absorbing the life force of over a dozen foreign saint emperors. When the figure of the tree vanished, the branch of the god tree returned to how it had looked before. The life force from the saint emperors had completely vanished. The wave-breaking blade and the righteous Yang's sword shot off into the distance when the battle had ended. Throughout the entire battle, no one saw who was controlling them, but many of them recognized the two extraordinary weapons as the ancestral weapons of the Tyrant's Blade School and the Changyang clan. The power they displayed shocked many of them. The two weapons had displayed power that completely exceeded anything that had been mentioned in past records. Even during the glorious ancient times, Saint Emperors were unable to display such power when controlling them. Afterward, the people gathered there all dispersed. Sanxiong returned to the beast god continent with the magical beasts as well, leaving none behind. They were all heavily injured and needed to return and heal as soon as possible. The sea goddess left by herself as well. She departed silently, only leaving behind around a dozen saint kings, who were not so heavily injured, to watch over the tunnel. In the blink of an eye, only a few dozen humans and a few exhausted Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters were left. They were the people who had managed to survive until the end. They had probably become the only Saint Kings left on the continent, aside from the few people who had remained in seclusion and did not take part in the battle. Even the Radiant Saint Master Union suffered greatly. Some of the few Class 7 Radiant Saint Masters had died as well, leaving behind only 7 people, which included the President and the Grand Elder. The Changyang clan still possessed the greatest amount of power among the 10 protector clans. Aside from the people from the Qing and Yuan branches who never took part in the battle, Changyang Zhu Shao, Changyang Zhu Yunshao, and Changyang Zhu Yeyin were fine. All they suffered were a few insignificant scratches. If it were not for Shao Jin's protection, they probably would have died as well. All the Saint Kings of the Shanshao sect, the Yangji sect, Yuan sect, and Moyuan clan had died while the emperor armaments of the 4 protector clans had fallen into the magma below. The other protector clans had lost over half of their Saint Kings. Only one remained for the Heavens Incense School. He was barely alive as well. The ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire had fallen and, just like the Karl Empire, they were left with a single Saint King. Tsar Vamos of the Tsar family from the Holy Empire had died in the battle as well, but Saint King still remained for the other 2 clans of the Holy Empire. This would result in a decline for the Tsar family, who originally reigned supreme above the other 2 clans. Mercenary City was left with only 3 Saint Kings as well, even though they were much more powerful than the protector clans before. Fortunately, very few saint rulers had taken part in the battle, so the future of the continent still existed. New Saint Kings would appear again soon. Jian Chen, I want to thank you, my friend, for helping us out so many times, or I would have been done for long ago. The ancestor of the Kara clan thanked Jian Chen gratefully. He would glance at Shao Jin, who stood beside Jian Chen from time to time as an odd light appeared in his eyes. Jian Chen clasped his hands at him and conversed a little with him. Not only was Kara Lot the great-grandfather of Kara Liwei, the Qinhuang kingdom was also a subsidiary of his clan. As a result, Jian Chen needed to watch over Kara Lot. After their conversation, Jian Chen looked at the heavenly enchantress. As soon as he attempted to approach her, she left in a blur with a single movement, something he would never have expected. Jian Chen silently stared at the heavenly enchantress figure and only sighed gently after quite some time. He did not chase after her. Sigh. Our mercenary city was founded in ancient times and has existed for over 1,000,000 years. It became a symbol of the Tian Yuan continent long ago. I never thought that it would be destroyed like this, where not even ruins remain. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City was filled with sorrow as he stared at the bottomless pit beneath him. Although the mercenary city of the past has been destroyed, that's only its shell. Its soul still lives on. We need to rebuild Mercenary City. Yes. We can rebuild a destroyed city. We can't forget about the Lord Barrier Spirit, the esteemed Great Elder, and our heritage of countless years. The 2 other Saint Kings of Mercenary City both agreed. They were brimming with vigor. Mercenary City was destroyed, but the miniature world could still be opened up. The battle had not shaken the organization much at all other than destroying their city and taking the lives of a few of their Saint Kings. Chapter 1392, The Greatest City in the World. 1. Elders, I am willing to assist you in rebuilding Mercenary City so that you can recover your peak strength in the shortest amount of time. Jian Chen expressed his thoughts. He had accumulated a heavy debt with Mercenary City throughout his growth. Mercenary City possessed a special place in his heart as well. Now that the renowned Mercenary City had disappeared from the continent, he felt horrible. Xiao Ling became very upset beside Jian Chen. She became extremely depressed and unhappy. If they had to nominate someone who was most attached to the city, it would definitely be Xiao Ling. She had grown up in the city and guarded it for countless years. Mercenary City was not as simple as a home to her because it was the marks her master had left behind. The three Saint Kings of Mercenary City expressed their gratitude toward Jian Chen. They all respected him, the respect given to someone who is strong. The battle had cemented Jian Chen's status into place. Great-grandfathers, great-grandmother, how are your injuries? I'll heal you with the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. Jian Chen turned his attention to Changyang Zhu Shao, Changyang Zhu Yun Shao, and Changyang Zhu Yeyun. His eyes were filled with concern. Regardless of how powerful he had become, they were still his seniors after all. Hee, my dear great-grandson, our injuries are nothing. We can recover with just some medicine, so there's no need for you to do something like that. Changyang Zhu Shao chuckled aloud as Changyang Zhu Yun Shao and Changyang Zhu Yeyun smiled joyously. It was extremely pleasant to their ears when Jian Chen referred to them as great-grandfather or great-grandfather. They felt extremely prideful. After all, Jian Chen's status was now extraordinary. In the eyes of many, he was an origin realm expert. He had even slain peak saint emperors just earlier. Great-grandson, who would this be? Changyang Zhu Yunshao asked curiously as he looked at Xiao Jin. He was filled with gratitude toward Xiao Jin, because he knew that if it were not for the boy's assistance several times, he probably would have died in battle already. Jian Chen told them the truth about Xiao Jin. When they learned that the shocking lightning near the tungsten alloy mine had been caused by him and when they learned about his true identity, the three of them along with the three elders of Mercenary City became absolutely stunned. Disbelief flooded their faces. Xiao Jin was actually a natural spirit given birth to by the world, and he possessed the power of an origin realm expert as soon as he came into existence. This had completely overwhelmed their understanding of the world. After all, there were extremely few origin realm experts even in ancient times, only totaling to 4. Jian Chen and Changyang Zhu Shao spoke some more. Jian Chen then took Xiao Jin with him back to Flame City. The three of them did not stay for much longer either, returning to the Changyang clan in Lore City soon after Jian Chen had left. Xiao Ling did not leave with Jian Chen and instead stayed behind, full of sorrow. She stared at the place where Mercenary City used to stand in a daze. Not only did the disappearance of the city mean that she had lost her home, the marks her master had once left behind had vanished as well. This filled her with sorrow and anguish. Even Jian Chen's comforting was not enough to calm her down. News of the shocking battle that had occurred at Mercenary City spread across the continent like wildfire. The news caused a huge commotion. Not only did it raise a huge commotion on the continent, even the 3 other races behaved similarly. Although the 4 races suffered extremely heavy casualties this time, they were still victorious in the end. They had slain all the invaders, so the invasion did not cause much panic. Some places were even filled with celebrations. At the same time, Jian Chen, Xiao Jin, the sea goddess, and Tai Ta had become known to everyone from their performances in the battle, shocking all 4 races. Soon after the battle had ended, the saint rulers of the Shinshao sect, Yangji sect, Yuan sect, and Moyuan clan all arrived at the battlefield. They cast secret techniques in search of their emperor armaments that had fallen into the magma. Afterward, they managed to retrieve them successfully with the assistance of the 3 Saint Kings of Mercenary City. They then returned to their clans with them. The seal over Flame City was released when Jian Chen returned. Yu, Bai Lian, and the rest ran to Jian Chen's side and flooded him with questions. They were all concerned about what happened at Mercenary City. Their faces all lit up when they learned that their world managed to fend off the invasion. They could finally relax. Afterward, Jian Chen decided to complete his unprecedented deed. He took Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yun Zheng, Seniorin, and the others, the several dozen elites of the Flame Mercenaries, to the depths of the tungsten alloy mine again. He used the various heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm to increase their strength. He understood that he had only fended off the first wave of attacks from the world of Forsaken Saints. The tunnel was still unstable right now, so only Saint Emperors could pass through. Those beyond Saint Emperor could easily cause the tunnel to collapse. It would not completely destroy the tunnel, but they would be sucked into the endless cosmos by the chaotic space. Even Origin Realm experts would not necessarily survive that. Right now, the tunnel was gradually stabilizing. This was an unstoppable process, where even wreaking havoc upon it would only delay the inevitable. Once the tunnel completely stabilized, the world of Forsaken Saints would definitely send even more Saint Emperors or even Origin Realm experts. As a result, Jianshan needed to increase the strength they possessed. Not only did it include his personal strength, but that strength also included the overall strength of the Tianyuan continent and even the sea race, magical beasts, and 100 races as well. Making the flame mercenaries powerful was only the first step. Jianshan had harvested a total of 3 5th-grade violet cloud peach trees in total in the Xianhuang microcosm. Each tree bore 108 peaches, so he did not worry about wasting them at all when he increased the strength of the several dozen people before him. He gave them all 5th-grade violet cloud peaches without a second thought. Because most of them were Heaven Saint Masters and not a single one of them had stepped into sainthood, only 5th-grade violet cloud peaches would be the best insurance that they would all become Saint Kings. After all, they would end up wasting a lot of the vast energy during the absorption process. A day later, the first rainbow clouds appeared in the sky. They were not 7-colored but 5-colored, a saint ruler's breakthrough. Little Fatty was the one who had broken through since he possessed the most talent out of all of them. Soon after Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yunzheng, Seniorin, and the group of elites all broke through. At that moment, the sky became filled with rainbow light, which lit up the world. There were 9 colors present among all the clouds, reaching over 1,000,000 kilometers away. These were not 9-colored clouds, but several layers of rainbow clouds caused by the simultaneous breakthrough of several dozen people. Every single person's rainbow clouds possessed different colors, which was why there were 9 colors when the several dozen layers of clouds appeared. The clouds enveloped an area far greater than a single person's breakthrough. This had caused quite a large disturbance on the continent again. Many saint rulers had even thought that a new saint emperor had appeared. The mountain range was currently shrouded by fog while the dense energy of the world drifted in the surroundings, pouring out as dense mist. All of this was due to the energy of the violet cloud peaches leaking out of their bodies. They had probably absorbed less than half of the true energy within the peach they had consumed. Several days later, Little Fatty broke through again, stepping into Saint King first. 7 colored clouds descended in the sky, enveloping an area of 1,000,000 kilometers. After him, the others broke through one by one as well. In just a short day, they had all reached Saint King. Several dozen layers of 7-colored clouds flooded the sky. They radiated dazzling lights as 9 different colors enveloped the entire continent. The disturbance this time was even greater than when they had become saint rulers. The stacked layer of clouds spread in all directions at an unbelievable rate, enveloping the entire continent very soon and causing a huge commotion. However, the clouds did not stop there. The rainbow clouds continued to expand into the sea, stopping at the borders of the sea race, the magical beasts, and the 100 races in the end, shocking all the experts of the 3 races. These aren't 9-colored rainbow clouds, but 7-colored ones caused by people breaking through to Saint King. My God, I can sense over 57-colored rainbow clouds stacked atop one another. There's actually several dozen saint rulers breaking through into Saint Kings together. It's from the direction of the Tianyuan continent. How is this possible? How can there be so many saint rulers breaking through together? The Saint Kings of all races stared at the sky while dumbfounded. They were extremely shocked. The simultaneous breakthrough of several dozen saint rulers had not happened even during the glorious ancient times. Let alone several dozen, just a dozen saint rulers breaking through together had not ever happened in the past. Chapter 1393, The Greatest City in the World, 2. This time, Jianshan caused several dozen people to reach Saint King, leading to just too great of a disturbance. Several dozen 7-colored rainbow clouds layered upon one another, forming something akin to 9-colored rainbow clouds that only appeared when Saint Kings broke through to Saint Emperors, except that was a far more majestic sight. The 9-colored rainbow clouds of Saint Emperors would only span across the entire continent, while the several dozen layers of clouds right now had actually surpassed the boundaries of the continent in the form of a mixed 9-colored cloud and had reached the edges of the 3 other races. At that moment, the entire world was in shock. Whether it was the humans on the Tian Yuan continent, the 100 races, or the magical beasts, all of them felt extremely perturbed. Even the sea race hidden deep beneath the ocean could sense the clouds, leading a few Saint Kings to emerge from the ocean. They stared into the distance in shock as the ocean churned. If they had only been Saint rulers, they would definitely have suspected that the 9-colored clouds came from a Saint King's breakthrough, but the mysteries within the clouds were not enough to fool the Saint Kings. All of them could sense that even though the clouds looked like they had 9 colors, they were really several dozen 7-colored rainbow clouds stacked on top of each other. What's happening on the Tian Yuan continent? Why are there so many 14th star warriors breaking through to the 15th star? Some experts of the sea race asked out of curiosity. The strongest human of the Tian Yuan continent, Jian Chen, has close ties with our sea goddess Hall. This means that the humans are the good friends of us as well. Let's go to the Tian Yuan continent and have a look. Let's see what's going on, said a Saint King from the sea goddess Hall. The simultaneous breakthrough of several dozen people had piqued their curiosity. All right, let's go, agreed an old man. His face was rather pale, clearly still injured, but his injuries were not enough to stop him from checking things out. This bloody sun sure is uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I'm being burnt alive, an extremely burly middle-aged cursed unhappily as he glanced at the sun in the sky. The sea race spent most of their time in the sea realm and were used to the underwater environment there. They were not accustomed to the sun even though it could not harm them. Afterward, the sea race experts all ripped open space gates and made their way to the Tian Yuan continent. At the same time, many magical beasts moved out as well. The simultaneous breakthroughs of several saint rulers was an occurrence worth investigating. All of them wanted to go to the Tian Yuan continent to see what was going on. They wanted to find out if a shortcut from Saint Ruler to Saint King existed. Even the 3 rulers of the continent who were currently recuperating in the Beast God Hall were alerted. They all hovered outside the Divine Hall as they stared in the direction of the Tian Yuan continent. The wasteland continent inhabited by the 100 races was a desolate, dreary place. Yellow sand and dry earth spanned as far as the eye could see, and even the ancient mountains were bare. There was rarely any greenery visible anywhere. In the center of the continent stood a mountain that reached into the clouds. It was extremely well known on the continent because all the authority of the 100 races was centered around the mountain. The mountain was known as War God Mountain. It was a holy place among the 100 races because it was where their supreme War God Hall stood. The golden Divine Hall glowed with an unprecedented luster right now. It was as dazzling as the sun. It stood there silently like a slumbering primordial beast, radiating with prestige and a certain holiness. The 3-meter-tall Tai Ta sat on the central golden throne that signified the greatest authority inside. His golden skin seemed to fuse with the throne, shining with a faint, golden luster that resonated with the entire hall. All the experts of the 100 races gathered beneath Tai Ta. All of them knelt on the floor emotionally. A few older people had even teared up while their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Basically all the people present possessed wounds that came from the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. However, none of them bothered with their injuries. No matter how heavily wounded they were, as long as they could stand and remain conscious, they had all gathered here to welcome their war god. Great King of War, you have finally returned. We have waited painfully, great war god, we've finally found you. Our 100 races can strive toward glory as long as we are led by you, great war god. The entire race shares the same sentiment. We are all willing to abide by your commands. You stand supreme. You are the faith of the 100 races, the soul of everyone. The experts of the 100 races below emotionally cried out. Every single one of their cries was filled with joy. Their sorrow from the deaths of so many experts had already been overshadowed by the return of their war god. The news of the war god's return spread through the entire continent like wildfire. This threw all the clansmen into utter joy and excitement. On a continent with horrible living conditions, there was cheering wherever people were present. Some people had even begun to decorate their households with lanterns and streamers, filling the land with joy. At this moment, Tai Ta sensed something. He suddenly looked in the direction of the Tian Yuan continent and sank deep into thought. His strength was extraordinary. Clearly, he had sensed the disturbance that was occurring in the direction of the Tian Yuan continent as well. However, the War God Hall was situated in the center of the continent. It was extremely distant from the borders, so no one else in the Divine Hall had sensed the pulse of energy from the Tian Yuan continent aside from Tai Ta, including Saint Kings at great perfection. Little Fatty and the others continued to break through in the mountain range near Flame City. After becoming Saint Kings, the vast energy from the violet cloud peaches still remained. They all advanced toward the first heavenly layer, the second heavenly layer, the third heavenly layer, and so on. The comprehension T came into effect as their strength increased. It allowed all of them to enter a wondrous mental state, assisting them in the comprehension of the mysteries of the world. With the assistance of the T, the mysteries of the world were presented before them in the clearest fashion possible. Many experts gathered in the surroundings of the mountain range. Not only had saint rulers come, even quite a few saint kings were present. A dazzling violet light flickered in the sky above the mountain range. The Ziying sword had become 30 meters in length as it hovered there. Jian Shen was sitting on top of it, carefully observing everything below. He had expanded the senses of his soul to 10,000 kilometers away, watching over the people below him and protecting them as they broke through. The several dozen saint kings have broken through here. I remember that there was a storm of lightning here recently. Looks like this place really is rather special. Maybe overcoming bottlenecks will become much easier if I cultivate here. The energy of the world here is just far too dense. I've cultivated for thousands of years, and I've even visited the miniature worlds of the 10 protector clans, but they're all like streams compared to this sea of energy. The saint kings present all sighed emotionally. They felt like they had arrived in heaven. Not only was the energy of the world extremely dense, but it was also extremely pure as well. Not only were there humans, members of the sea race, the 100 races and the magical beasts were present as well. Although the Saint Kings in the War God Hall had failed to sense the disturbance, the experts on the edge of the continent could clearly see the rainbow light that came from the clouds. If it was any other day, the people would definitely have been obstructed by all the experts of the Tian Yuan continent as soon as they had appeared, but now, they required the reinforcements of the 3 other races to fend off the threat of the foreign world. This was why many people gave up their xenophobic thoughts and did not step forward to stop the arrival of the foreigners. Let's go in and have a look to see just what the secret is, a magical beast suggested. He won the support of quite a few people very soon. He immediately set off with over 20 Saint Kings, carefully making his way toward the mountain range. However, before they had even traveled 1,000 meters, an azure sword shot through the air as a flash of azure light. It hung in the air as it obstructed them in the form of a sword several dozen meters long. Isn't this one of Saint Emperor Jian Chen's divine swords? Someone immediately recognized the Qing Suo sword and asked aloud. Sovereign Jian Chen's strength has already surpassed Saint Emperor and reached the legendary origin realm. If you speak Sovereign Jian Chen's name carelessly, you won't be returning today if you anger him, a human rebuked quietly. He felt extremely unpleasant. Jian Chen was now the pride and glory of the humans as well as a crucial figure in matching up against the 3 other races. He obviously needed to be extremely protective over their glorious leader as a human before foreigners. The foreign expert's face immediately changed slightly when he heard that. He showed deep fear. He too had taken part in the battle and had personally witnessed Jian Chen killing Saint Emperors like ants. Chapter 1394, The Greatest City in the World, 3. The Qing Suo sword hovered in the air and blocked everyone's path, immediately forcing them all to a stop. They all stood where they were, unwilling to take a step further. All of them recognized the origins of the sword. Even though they were all Saint Kings, standing at the very top among their own races and clans both in power and status, they all lowered themselves before the Qing Suo sword and behaved politely. Everyone, the people of my flame mercenaries are undergoing breakthroughs here. I hope you do not disturb them, in case you affect their cultivation. Jian Chen's voice rang through everyone's head. In order to prevent any disturbances, he had communicated to all the people present through a technique. It's the voice of Sovereign Jian Chen. A human expert exclaimed. His voice bore some excitement. Even though Jian Chen was only a junior in all their eyes and his age was nothing to them, in this world, where strength dominated, age was not important. At most, it could be used to measure someone's talent. I never thought that the sovereign of the humans would be here. Let's all back off, muttered a foreign expert. No wonder there's been such a great disturbance here. We had even thought that there was a shortcut to Saint King hidden here. Looks like it's just the human sovereign using his great abilities and helping his subordinates break through. The human sovereign is powerful enough to actually create several dozen Saint Kings. Just how has he achieved this? Can you learn some heaven-defying techniques once you surpass Saint Emperor and reach the legendary origin realm? Many people discussed the information they had just obtained, but they all kept their voices to a bare minimum. After that, they all slowly backed off, no longer wanting to investigate what was going on inside. In the end, all the Saint Kings backed off to the outskirts of the mountain range, but none of them left. They all remained there as they quietly stared into the depths. Some people had even found a place to sit down and began to cultivate. The energy of the world here had reached an unbelievable density. They had never felt a place with such a dense and pure energy. It would be extremely beneficial to them if they cultivated in these conditions. Improving by leaps and bounds would be quite an appropriate description if they cultivated here. Several days later, Little Fatty and the others all roused from their cultivation. The moment they opened their eyes, their gazes became filled with obvious excitement and joy. A Saint King was a supreme realm of cultivation, unreachable to many of them. Some of them had even made the wish that they wanted to reach Saint King. After all, reaching that level of cultivation required both talent and time. Yet now, they had actually all broken through to Saint King in just a few short days, even though they had been Heaven Saint Masters before, which was dreamlike to them. It did not seem realistic at all. Yunzheng, Seniorin, and the several dozen elites were especially emotional. Everyone gather. Suddenly, a loud voice rang through the entire mountain ranges. One of the leader of the elite mercenaries, Charles, had given the order, and immediately, the several dozen people, who were scattered around, all hurried over. In less than 10 seconds, they had all gathered in an orderly fashion. They were still unable to control their powers since they had just broken through. They could not help but let their powers leak out, so a storm of energy immediately formed where they stood. The storm of energy caused the wind and clouds to churn while their surroundings became flooded with a suffocating pressure. The joy from breaking through had already vanished after they had gathered together. They all suppressed their feelings, recovering their usual cool. They all stood there emotionlessly as their eyes burned brightly. They seemed like trained soldiers. Little Fatty, Wang Yifeng, Yunzheng, and Seniorin did not stand with them. They all arrived behind Jian Chen. Similarly, great energy would surge from their bodies from time to time. Although their abrupt increase in strength did not come with any after effects, they clearly still needed some time to become familiar with the powers that they had suddenly obtained. Our flame mercenaries have gained several dozen Saint Kings now. This is just wonderful. Bai Lian, Yu Yu, Ming Dong, and the others all hurried over from the city. They looked at the group of Saint Kings who stood like soldiers and all expressed their inner joy. The various Saint Kings on the outskirts of the mountain range all saw this clearly as well and gasped. Not only had the flame mercenaries gained several dozen Saint Kings in a single stroke, the Saint Kings even behaved like soldiers. This had never happened before, not even in ancient times. The Saint Kings actually all belonged to the same organization. Flame City is just far too powerful. The Tianyuan continent has just survived a calamity. The four races have lost many Saint Kings, and there are not many left now. At such a time, Flame City has suddenly gained several dozen Saint Kings. This the Flame City has truly become the greatest city in the world. The Flame Mercenaries have become the greatest mercenary group and organization on the Tianyuan continent. Not only do they have many Saint Kings, they even have a sovereign. Many people emotionally sighed while standing on the outskirts of the mountains. The Flame Mercenaries were once renowned on the continent, but they did not possess much overall power at all. They had extremely few Saint Kings, none in fact. They had been supported by just Jian Chen and the 3 magical beasts. But it was all different now. Ming Dong, De Gufeng, Yu Yu, and Bai Hai had all become Saint Kings. The Flame Mercenaries had also gained another group of Saint Kings now. Without any exaggeration, the Flame Mercenaries possessed extremely great power overall. They could still stand supreme on the continent without Jian Chen. Jian Chen walked through the air and arrived before the group of people who had followed him the earliest. His face was filled with pride. When the group of people before him had joined him at the very beginning, they had all been Saint Masters or Great Saint Masters, without a single Earth Saint Master. Yet now, under his lead, they had grown and changed step by step. They had finally attained their current achievements after exhausting a large amount of resources and great heavenly resources. This filled Jian Chen with great pride and satisfaction. This was because he had personally raised this group of people. He had cultivated them from ordinary mercenaries to supreme experts. Chapter 1395, Divine Guards of the Flame. Several decades of life and death training, several decades of tough cultivation have allowed you to grow from nameless mercenaries into superpowers that reign supreme across the continent. From today on, you can emerge into the light from your dark corner. From today on, the Tianyuan continent will change because of your existence. In the future, you will become the glory of the Flame Mercenaries, the honor of the Flame Mercenaries, and the protectors of the Flame Mercenaries. We will become even more powerful because you are present. As the second captain of the Flame Mercenaries, I shall bestow a new name upon you. You shall be known as the Divine Guards of the Flame. Jian Chen said emotionally and loudly. His voice rang out like a bell, reverberating across the entire mountain range with supreme authority. We thank the captain for the name he has bestowed. We will forget our former name and exist in this world as the Divine Guards of the Flame. We will guard the glory of the Flame Mercenaries wholeheartedly and lay down our lives to protect the name of the Flame Mercenaries. We will never let down the captain, Mo Tian replied loudly and forcefully. His voice was emotional and his determined eyes had even began to tear up. Mo Tian had only been a puny Saint Master back in Wake City of the Blue Wing Kingdom. One of a countless number of mercenaries who had lived at the very bottom of society. He had often fought with brutal magical beasts, coming close to death time and time again just to make some money and live. At that time, his greatest wish was to become an Earth Saint Master, while becoming a Heaven Saint Master was his dream. This was because Heaven Saint Masters were extremely impressive experts in the Blue Wind Kingdom. Once he became a Heaven Saint Master, he would be able to enjoy infinite wealth and glory. Not only had he achieved his wish of the past, but he had even become a glorious Saint King. Even with the entire continent in perspective, he was now a great existence. He had never even wished about attaining something like this in the past. At this moment, he felt overjoyed over the smart decision he had made before. If he had not sworn his life to Jian Chen, it would have been impossible for him to have today's glory. The Saint Kings who had gathered on the outskirts of the mountain range all sighed in surprise. These several dozen Saint Kings would only take up the position of guards in Flame City. This had completely overturned everything they knew. Throughout the entire continent, there was no Saint King who was not worshipped like a god. Even in the Protector clans, anyone who broke through to Saint King would immediately be promoted to Great Elder and would possess absolute authority. Even among the Sea race, which had many more Saint Kings than the Tianyuan continent, they would never use Saint Kings as protectors or guards. Even the 3 great halls needed to provide Saint Kings the premium life. Flame City had done something no one had ever done before. They were the only ones to use Saint Kings as guards throughout history. Jian Chen returned to Flame City with the guards. Yu Yu and everyone else and was welcomed by the most enthusiastic cheers of the entire city. The news of Flame City's sudden increase in Saint Kings swiftly spread across the entire continent. The news even reached the ears of the 3 other races. It threw them all into a huge commotion. The world was taken by shock. Everyone discussed this matter as they sighed in surprise. The next day, countless Saint Kings visited Flame City. This included people from all 4 races. They had come to congratulate the Flame City on their ascension. Even the Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall, Yedrium, personally came. Jianshan let Bai Lian and Yu Yu receive most visitors. He only personally received a few guests he was familiar with, such as Yadrium, Changyang Zhu Shao, and so on. In short, it was basically impossible for the Saint Kings who did not have any ties with Jianshan to see him. It was not because of Jianshan's pride, but there were just far too many people who had come. He did not want to waste his energy on greeting them all. The 4 imperial protectors of the Qinhuang Kingdom had come as well, but the treatment they received in Flame City was far greater than other Saint Kings. As mere Saint rulers, they were invited to the back to meet Jianshan without any obstructions at all. Kara Liwei visited Flame City with her ancestor, Kara Lot, as well. They were invited to the back as well. Other than them, Tian Muling had also come, meeting Jianshan while accompanied by Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong. Brother Jianshan, can I still call you that now? Tian Muling asked carefully as soon as she saw Jianshan. She acted pitiful and showed some fear on her face. Jianshan was extremely happy to see old friends. He chuckled aloud, why not? Miss Tian Muling has helped me a lot in the past, so how could I forget about you? My status greatly differs from the past, but it cannot change my morals as a person. Tian Muling was unsettled by how she had referred to Jianshan before. She felt extremely uneasy, afraid of offending Jianshan, but she finally relaxed after hearing what Jianshan said. She understood that even though Jianshan had become an existence akin to a sovereign, he had not forgotten about his former friendships. This immediately filled her with joy. Jun Moyan and Wang Yinhong could not help but look at each other and smile knowingly when they saw how Jianshan treated Tian Muling, as they followed behind her. Back in the gathering of mercenaries, Brother Jianshan, Ming Dong, De Gufeng, and I were all Earth Saint Masters. It's only been a few short decades since then, yet Brother Jianshan has already surpassed Saint Emperor. Even Ming Dong and De Gufeng have become Saint Kings. Only I have been left behind, the same as before. I haven't even become a Heaven Saint Master, Tian Muling sighed dejectedly. The gazes she directed at Jianshan, Ming Dong, and De Gufeng were filled with obvious admiration. Jianshan could not help but think back to when he had taken part in the gathering of mercenaries with Ming Dong, because of what Tian Muling had said. His eyes immediately became filled with memories and he said, Tian Muling, you've helped me quite a lot in the past. Don't worry, I'll help you out after this and let you become a Saint King. Really? Tian Muling's eyes immediately lit up, and she became extremely excited. Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong both became stunned before becoming ravished with joy. Jianshan's status was now extraordinary, so they did not doubt his words at all. He had allowed several dozen people to become Saint Kings, so they did not doubt his ability to make an Earth Saint Master become a Saint King in a short amount of time. Jianshan, don't forget that you made a promise to me as well. Whether I can become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master or not will all depend on you. Kara Liwei squeezed over and stared at Jianshan with her beautiful eyes. After understanding Jianshan's temperament, Kara Liwei became bolder. She did not hold back at all. Chapter 1396, A Sealed World. 1. Jianshan had a very good impression of Kara Liwei as well. He treated her as half a friend and chuckled, Miss Kara Liwei, don't worry. I will definitely keep my promises. I will never go back on them. Once the seal within the artifact space is released and is filled with the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force, I will definitely give you a few strands so that you can become a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. Then I'll be waiting at the Kara clan, waiting for Sovereign Jianshan's good news. I hope I can use this chance to reach Class 7 successfully and complete my greatest dream. Kara Liwei smiled sweetly. She was extremely happy after Jian Chen reaffirmed his promise. Jian Chen had gathered a lot of Radiant Saint Force origin energy the last time the seal within the artifact space had been released. He had then given it to the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union. He had specifically told him that Kara Liwei and Quan Yukai had first priority, but Kara Liwei and Quan Yukai had both failed to break through unfortunately. They had lost a great chance at reaching the 7th class. Although the only requirement for reaching Class 7 was to fuse a single strand of Radiant Saint Force origin energy into a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master's soul, to allow the soul to undergo a metamorphosis, this step could not be achieved so easily. Many Class 6 Radiant Saint Masters could not achieve this. Only an extremely limited number of people ever managed to break through. At this moment, Jian Chen's face changed. He shot off into the sky like an arrow, arriving at an altitude of several thousand meters in a single moment. He stared into the distance as he hovered there. His eyes seemed to be able to pierce space and see the ends of the earth. He saw a sword fly over from several tens of thousand kilometers away. It gave off an extremely obscure pulse of energy. The energy pulse was abnormal, where even Saint Emperors would fail to sense it. The sword turned around several tens of thousand kilometers away before shooting off again. It disappeared in a single moment. Jian Chen expanded the senses of his soul, which expanded with great speed. It enveloped a radius of over 200,000 kilometers, catching up to the sword in the blink of an eye. That's the Emperor armament of the Changyang clan. Jian Chen could clearly sense every nook and cranny present on the sword with his soul. He could tell with a single glance that it was the ancestral weapon of the Changyang clan, but the presence it currently gave off was just far more powerful than before. The righteous Yang sword seemed to sense Jian Chen's spying, so it suddenly exploded with speed. It shot off into the distance as a stream of light, immediately vanishing as it pierced through space. It escaped from Jian Chen's range of senses. That's not an Emperor armament but a weapon used by Origin Realm experts. It's a saint artifact. Jian Chen thought inside. He was greatly surprised and immediately leaped onto the Ziying sword in pursuit. As his understanding of sword riding deepened, Jian Chen could move at greater and greater speeds. He had surpassed the speed he had displayed in the Sea Realm before as he shot off after the righteous Yang sword. Although he had lost track of the sword, Jian Chen could still tell which direction the sword had flown in because of the insignificant marks it left behind in the space. The extreme north was the northern boundary of the Tianyuan continent. It was extremely close to the Northern Sea, and a little beyond the edge of the border. One would no longer be on the Tianyuan continent anymore. It would just be the ocean. A great mountain stood in the lands close to the Northern Sea. The mountain was abnormally grand. It was extremely steep, making it almost unscalable. The highest point was over 10,000 meters above the sea realm with its peak poking into the clouds. Two people stood silently beside one another on the highest point of the mountain. They did not move at all. They stood like statues as they fixedly stared at the depths of the Northern Sea. One of them was a middle-aged, burly man around the age of 40. He was bare-chested and only wore a pair of shorts, revealing his powerful bronze muscles. The other was an old man in his 70s. He had a ruddy appearance and seemed rather sagely. His eyes were extremely deep. At this moment, a sword flew over from afar, headed toward the old man. It moved extremely quickly. However, the old man did not react at all, as if he did not sense the arrival of the sword at all. However, when the sword was 300 meters away from the old man, it drastically slowed down before falling into the old man's hand as a red streak of light and disappearing. He's come much faster than I had expected. Yang Lai, your great-grandson sure is impressive, commented the burly man. The two of them were the founding ancestors of the Changyang clan and the Tyrant's Blade School, Yang Lai and Gue Haidao. A violet streak of light appeared on the horizon as soon as Gue Haidao finished speaking. The violet streak of light was even faster than the sword that had returned earlier. The light was still on the horizon in one moment, yet it had landed on the mountain with unbelievable speed in the next. It possessed an extremely sharp sword chi, turning all the vegetation in a radius of 1,000 meters to dust. The light vanished and revealed Jian Chen. He stood 1,000 meters away from Yang Lai and Gui Haidao as he stared at them. He did not feel calm at all. This was because the two people were hazy, like mist to the senses of his soul. They did not seem like they existed at all, which shocked him greatly. Only those who had reached the origin realm could avoid being sensed by his soul. No matter what secret techniques Saint Emperors used, they would not be able to avoid being detected. Jian Chen felt very shocked. When had two origin realm experts appeared on the Tianyuan continent without explanation? This was because in the history of the continent, there had never been rumors of a fifth origin realm expert other than the barrier spirit of Mercenary City. Great-grandfather. Jian Chen subconsciously cried out when he saw Yang Lai. He became stunned and disbelief flooded his face. At that moment, he began to doubt his eyes, as if he had seen the wrong person. One of the two mysterious origin realm experts was actually his great-grandfather, Changyang Zhu Yunkong, someone he was extremely familiar with. However, the feeling Changyang Zhu Yunkong gave off was vastly different from before. He seemed like he was someone else. Jian Chen subconsciously rubbed his eyes as he examined the people before him carefully. He found this rather difficult to accept. From what he understood, Changyang Zhu Yunkong was only a saint king at most. Even with his great talent, it would not be possible for him to undergo two major breakthroughs in such a short amount of time and reach the origin realm. Yang Lai turned his head to Jian Chen and his eyes became filled with a gentleness. He smiled benevolently. I never thought that I, Yang Lai, would have such an impressive great-grandson. This has taken me by surprise. Even in the higher world, there are only a few people with talent like you. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes when he heard the man mention a higher world. He stared at Yang Lai fixedly and inquired, just who are you? I am Yang Lai, as well as Changyang Zhu Yunkong. I am your great-grandfather. I founded the Protector Changyang clan, except this current life is a reincarnation. I've awakened my memories now and returned to who I was before, Yang Lai explained. Jian Chen was stunned. He thought over what Yang Lai had just said several times. What he had said was just far too shocking. Even with Jian Chen's mental fortitude, he was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 1397, A Sealed World, 2. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. He closely observed Yang Lai and Gui Haidao. Under the senses of his soul, the two of them were hazy like mist, as if they did not exist at all. This was a representation of the origin realm, but he suddenly discovered that the two of them were not actually of the origin realm in terms of strength. They were still peak saint emperors. Jian Chen could not help but think of the emperor armament of the Changyang clan. He was unable to tell the quality of the weapon due to his limited strength, so he had always believed that the righteous Yang sword was just an emperor armament nourished by saint emperors. Only now did he finally discover that it was nothing like an emperor armament. It was the weapon of an origin realm expert. It had reached the level of saint artifacts, equivalent to immortal artifacts from the immortals' world. However, what he found conflicting was that saint artifacts could only originate from origin realm experts. His great-grandfather had reached the origin realm in terms of cultivation, but his strength had stagnated at the level of saint emperors. He was unable to make his emperor armament reach the level of saint artifacts. Jian Chen suddenly thought of something. He asked, Great-grandfather, were you at the origin realm in the past and not a saint emperor as the records say? It's just that you don't have enough time right now, which is why you haven't recovered your strength to the origin realm. Yang Lai smiled, I never thought that you'd be spot on. Great-grandson, you're right. I used to be an origin realm expert. Except I suffered unimaginable injuries and my cultivation level fell, returning to Saint Emperor. On the Tianyuan continent, there are only records of 4 origin realm experts, which are the strongest human, Mo Tianyun, the winged tiger god, the war god Ergens, and the sea goddess. There has never been a rumor of a 5th origin realm expert. Since you possessed the strength of an origin realm expert in ancient times and experienced a huge battle, which you became heavily injured in, why are there no records of your legends on the Tian Yuan continent? Why do people still think you're just a saint emperor after all these years? Jian Shen asked out of curiosity. He found all this information extremely confusing. Yang Lai gently sighed. He stared at the vast sea as a sliver of reminiscence filled his eyes. He only said slowly a while later, "Great-grandson, I did not plan on telling you the reason, but you have the right to know the secret now, so I'll tell you." Jian Chen's interest was piqued. He gathered all his attention to listen. He had already realized that his great-grandfather was probably hiding a huge secret, something ancient that had been buried by history already. "My dear great-grandson, I'm not a person from this world. Gui Hai Dao and I originated from another world. It was a larger and higher world. All the people who surpass Saint Emperor and reach the origin realm on the Tian Yuan continent can proceed to that world. It's called the Saint's World," Yang Lai started to explain. Jian Chen was shocked. He stared at Yang Lai in disbelief. He had already learned about the Saint's World from the Sword Spirits, but he had never thought that the founder of the Protector Changyang clan had actually originated from there. This was nothing close to what he had been expecting. The universe really is filled with endless mysteries. "I never thought that there would be an even greater world beyond this one." Jian Shen sighed in surprise and acted like he did not know about the existence of the Saint's World. He then looked at Yang Lai and asked out of curiosity, "Great-grandfather, since there's another world out there, why are there only the two of you that have come down? Aren't there more people?" Gui Hai Dao glanced at Jian Shen as he stood beside Yang Lai and said, "Do you think that people from the Saint's World can come down as they wish? Powerful people are as common as the clouds in the Saint's World. Let alone the origin realm, there are countless people who have reached godhood, the realm above the origin realm. Any single one of those existences can easily destroy this world if they come down. It's extremely difficult for people of the Saint's World to come down, regardless of strength, including ordinary people. It can even be described as impossible." Gui Hai Dao's right. Once people of lower worlds have enough strength, they can proceed to a higher one, but if people of higher worlds want to come down, it's extremely difficult. "We ended up here purely due to an accident," revealed Yang Lai. He seemed to be in a slight trance as he thought of the past. Jian Shen remained silent. He stared at Yang Lai and waited for him to continue. "Great-grandson, I may have been an origin realm cultivator in the Saint's World, but experts of the origin realm have no status at all in the Saint's World. It's not as glorious as it is on the Tian Yuan continent. If you use the Tian Yuan continent as a comparison, the origin realm in the Saint's World would be equivalent to the level of Saint Masters or Great Saint Masters here, or maybe even less than that." Jian Shen already knew the status of origin realm cultivators in the Saint's World, so he did not find this news surprising. However, he did not reveal this secret of his, purposefully behaving as if he was in extreme shock. Yang Lai continued, "I belonged to a small group of adventurers in the Saint's World. There were not a lot of people in the group, only around 50. All of us were at the origin realm, aside from the captain, who was a deity. One time, we all entered a newly opened miniature world in search of treasure, but unfortunately, something important suddenly appeared. It attracted godhood experts very quickly. As they fought, the place became extremely unstable. Huge cracks in space appeared, almost causing the place to collapse. Many people died from the shockwaves of battle, and my entire group, along with many origin realm adventurers of other groups, was sucked into the spatial cracks. We fell into the chaotic streams of spacetime. It was extremely dangerous within the cracks. Even God Kings fell and infinite primes had to move carefully. My entire group, along with over 1,000 other adventurers, were all sucked away. I personally witnessed many people pass away. Even our deity captain passed away. The laws of the world within the spatial crack were chaotic and time was an utter mess. Millions of years could pass in a single moment, and then time would rewind by thousands of years in the next. It was utter chaos in there. There were no colors nor any sense of time. All I could see were people of our group dying constantly inside the spatial crack. Some people were swept away by chaotic streams of time, either aging, rotting, being reduced to a pile of bones, which then turned to dust in the end, or turning into a newly born infant in a single moment before vanishing completely, Yang Lai said with a trembling voice. He was fearful of what he had seen in the cracks of space. Even after countless years, those scenes remained an inerasable shadow in his heart. All of us were filled with fear. We all thought that we'd die in the end, but fortunately, a tunnel to another world appeared within the cracks of space. The exit was not far away from us, so we used everything we had to approach the exit while we were still alive. In the end, we left that damned crack in space through there. Gui Haidao finished the story for Yang Lai. Joy from narrowly avoiding death lingered in his eyes. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.